Isn't that? I don't think you'd ever get sick of that song. Do you know what I mean?
He's got all of his back catalogue is excellent.
Yeah, you said you were just telling me that you were at his concert.
Yeah, we were up at in the Point or the 3 Arena or whatever.
And how would you rate it compared to?
Oh, it was 10 out of 10. Yeah, it was better than Ed Sheeran. We were Ed Sheeran last year. I'd never been to a concert before, you see.
Yeah.
So we went to Ed Sheeran.
What do you mean you'd never been to a concert
I'd never
before?
been to a concert before, ever. So we went to Ed Sheeran, Garth Brooks.
And all your lifetime, this is the first concert you...
First concerts I'd ever been at.
Are you serious?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to... Yeah.
I know, just didn't interest me. And he was fantastic there.
Yeah, but you would have thought Ed might have been a touch better because of his catalogue.
There was something there was something a bit more personal about your boys.
All right,
Lewis Capaldi.
he's genuine.
Yeah.
Well, I know Ed. I haven't seen him.
No, it's just... I don't know. There was just something. There's a vulnerability to Lewis Capaldi, which obviously is well documented at this stage.
Yeah.
And I just hope he gets over whatever he needs to get over to get back performing again. But you could see the sort of, you could see it interfering with his performance.
Yeah.
And it, you know what I mean? It didn't take away from it. It added to it. There was a vulnerability there.
That's what I was going to say. That would probably draw you in.
And acceptance from his fans and stuff. But you could see his tics where he was fighting with them. So hopefully now he gets that sorted and gets back to it. Because he's super, super tight. Ed Sheeran was brilliant, but it was outdoors. Croke Park, the sound is terrible in Croke Park.
Right.
You know, that's the truth, in my opinion. But no, Lewis Capaldi was the best.
So where did you see him then? It was indoor?
The Point.
Oh, fine. That's indoors.
Or whatever it's called, yeah.
All right, okay. Can we have a good show?
Lee, have a great weekend.
You too.
You're back Monday?
Yeah,
See you Monday then. All right, it is the 9 till noon show here in Highland Radio. Our Friday panel's going to join us very shortly. Doreen Sheridan, Michael White, Claudia Kennedy, all with us after we get a news update now from Michaela Clark.
Thanks, Greg. Good morning. Donegal County Council is being urged to prioritise defective block homeowners who are ready to commence remedial works under the new defective concrete block grant scheme. Some homeowners who had engaged with the previous scheme and had submitted their application 9 months ago fall further down the line due to the categories laid out now under the enhanced scheme. Councillor Martin McDermott, chair of the Council's defective block committee, says it's vital that applicants who have already had a lengthy wait are progressed as soon as possible.
There are a number of sections now that the council are doing, 1, 2, 3 and 4, different timelines for different applicants, but we did stress, and I did stress to the council that we need to be sure that those people that have their stage 2 submitted to the council now and are ready to start, they are prioritised along with groups 1 and 2. They are every bit as important because they've been waiting for quite a long time. So they did it and said that they would do that and that they would try and get this done over the next couple of weeks.
A third day of rolling strike action in the retained fire service takes place today. SIPTU says fire service management must take sole responsibility for the chaotic scenes seen in fire stations around the country. The union believes there's been a general strategy of non-cooperation from management since the start of the dispute. It claims phone calls are not being answered when firefighters contact the station from the scenes of incidents, and management is not deploying the required number of appliances to them. Donegal County Council says public safety is their priority throughout the strike, as 5 of the county's 15 brigades strike each day. Uisce Éireann is being asked to ensure better consultation with the public ahead of planned works. A 6-week road closure is due to come into effect in the coming weeks to facilitate the installation of a new water line in the Meanawheel area of West Donegal. Councillor Micheál Colmcgill-Asbach says many elderly people in the area will effectively be left cut off or forced to undertake a 20-kilometre round trip to leave home as a result of the road closure. He says it's a major inconvenience for many in the area.
6-week road closure will affect hugely the lives of the people who live up around the hills area and Tar and the general area there for their everyday living. People who are in full-time care up there with families and home help coming and going, Meals and Wheels, and people trying to just move on with their everyday living.
Weather now partly cloudy with outbreaks of showery rain, most frequent later in the day. Highest temperatures of 16 to 20 degrees. That's all from Highland Radio News for now. We'll be back with news again at 10 o'clock. Until then, good morning.
Tic Tac knows the day can be long, so here's some nice words to give you a little refresh.
Tranquility. Breeze. Whiffle. Fresh. Onomatopoeia. Tickle. Dandelion.
Lovely. Tic Tac, a gentle little refresh.
The county's #1 talk show, The 9 till Noon Show on Highland Radio. And now it's time for the talk of the Northwest, The 9 to Noon Show with Greg Hughes on Highland Radio.
Hello, good morning to you. 3 minutes, just turning 4 minutes past 9 on this Friday, the 28th of July, 2023. We're into the last show of the week here of The 9 till Noon Show. I do hope you're very well indeed, and hopefully you'll stick around for the next 3 hours as we've an interesting lineup as always. We have our Friday panel, which will get the show underway. I'll introduce them after I invite you to take part by WhatsApps and texts 086 60 25,000, 086 60 25,000. From outside the Republic, 00353 86 60 25,000. If you want to give us a call, it's 07491 25,000. Your emails to comments at highlandradio.com. And to remind you, you can watch the programme as well. It's on our YouTube channel, Highland Radio Ireland. You can watch that across all of your devices, including your smart TV and your Fire Stick, and on our Facebook pages as well, Highland Hub, Highland Radio News and Sport. So really, there's absolutely no excuses not to be involved. Okay, let's introduce our panel then. Doreen Sheridan Kennedy, retired Deputy School Principal and a community campaigner. Good morning, Doreen.
Morning, Greg. How are you?
Great to see you. How are you keeping? We have in studio with us Claudia Kennedy, which makes my life a little bit more complicated, but anyway, Claudia Kennedy, who is a teacher and Fianna Fáil Deputy Chair of Fianna Fáil CDC. Good morning to you, Claudia.
Good morning, Greg. It's great to be here.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us. And back over to our remote guest, Michael White, who is Chair of the Green Party in Donegal. Hiya, Michael.
Good morning, Greg. Imagine White.
Good to have you with us, Imagine White. We'll start with you, perhaps, because a review on expansion of the railway network across the island of Ireland has recommended widespread changes, including increasing top train speeds and reviewing abandoned lines. The All-Ireland Rail Review, published last Tuesday, recommended reinstating the Western Rail corridor between Claremorris and Athenry and the South Wexford Railway. It also recommended extending the railway into County Tyrone, running from Portadown to Dungannon, Omagh, Strabane and Derry, and on to Letterkenny in Donegal, of course. Well, Leo Varadkar said this review strengthens the argument for more investment in roads, but the chairwoman of the Greens on this programme says he's out of touch, or at least agreed. There is also a glaring gap between Sligo and Letterkenny. All that being said, is it positive? And I suppose, too, the question is, Michael, in our lifetime at least, will it be delivered?
Well, I think it's brilliant, actually. It's really positive. Back in 2021, we organised a meeting with Eamon Ryan and Into the West. That's a rail lobby group. I think you were speaking to them last week.
Yeah.
Greg. It's really good. This the strategic rail review is pretty serious. So the Department of Finance would have been involved in the costings and estimates, as was the European Investment Bank. So it comes from being a kind of aspirational stuff to now where there's much more detail. And the fact that they went and reviewed loads of potential routes, and the fact that the Letterkenny route is still in here after that review is brilliant, because a bunch of them have been marked as parked, where they've excluded a certain number of routes as being not feasible in the next 20 years. The fact that the Letterkenny spur is still in there and that the Derry, Tyrone, Dungannon line is in there is brilliant. And they're in sort of the medium term set. So I think it's already encouraging. I know there's some complaints about, there's nothing in there about a connection from, say, Letterkenny to Donegal Town and on to Sligo. That was evaluated, and they've called it parked. They haven't said it's never going to happen, but they're just saying in the 20-year projection, they don't think it'll be economically viable to reopen that route.
Yes, but that's the problem we face in the Northwest. Everything's not economically viable, but it is the right thing to do. I mean, maybe if you build it, they will come, because the economical viability angle was what the head of Inra Darren, I think it was at the time, said about 20 years ago.
Yeah, but the other things they do say, so if we get the Letterkenny routes earmarked for the 2030s, like about starting, well, the work should start in the next government, and then it'll be up and running in the mid-2030s. If that happens, it'll make the case for the further connection. Like, certainly the Greens aren't saying we're going to give up, we're not going to have a Donegal Town to Letterkenny connection. That's something we want to do. This makes that much more likely to happen now in the future. But getting the Letterkenny connection, getting a connection back to the county, and then having that route from Letterkenny, Derry, down through to Dungannon and on to Dublin, that then becomes a really, really feasible piece of infrastructure. It's easier to deliver that in some way than it is to deliver a motorway, because a lot of the infrastructure is already in place, it was never ripped up. So I think it's really positive, and it's much more real now than it has ever been in the past.
Would you agree, Doreen?
I think it's a good news story. Good morning, Michael. Good morning, Claudia. And I admire the ambition that's there. I suppose in my lifetime I may not see it, but I do also understand where the Leo, as part of the government team, Leo Varadkar, is coming in, because he does see there's freight and there's passengers, and he does see that economics are going to change, populations are going to change over the next 20 years. So therefore, what he's saying in relation to it all is that we still need to have money going into our road networks, and we in Letterkenny more than ever know exactly what that's about. And so I think we have to work hand in hand. I think it's very ambitious, and I think we are lucky that Letterkenny is going to be tied in with Strabane with a view to travelling to Dublin or travelling up to Derry and on to Belfast. I think it's wonderful news, but if it's going to take as long as it's taken us in Letterkenny and Donegal to get the Bonagee link as it is going to take us to get the actual this train up and running, I will just hold my breath, because I am very concerned where the road networks are going, and there's a lot of questions need to be answered there. But overall, I think it's very positive and very good, and it's very ambitious, and I think we have to look at it, because we do have to get maybe we when you do look at the routes that they're going to make faster, I was looking at that last night. You're into Galway, you're into Cork, big deal. We live in Donegal, so we need Donegal, and we need people from Sligo to Letterkenny to be pushing to make sure that route in the future is included as well. I think it's wonderful to think that the trains will be back. Because...
but do you really feel it's going to happen, Doreen? I mean, if they were serious, would they not have prioritised the Northwest? Is it not about time we got a priority?
No, I do think it will happen, but probably in your lifetime, Greg. But
I don't think. Okay.
Yeah, you're a lot younger than than I would be, so therefore I do see it as more possible. But I would like to think now. Michael seems to have pushed it out there to 2030. I thought we were talking about 2025 here. Be having it up and started.
Well, Michael's gone a little bit, but Michael's gone a little bit further than Pauline O'Reilly, because she said she wasn't able to timeline it at all.
Yeah, and I think that's the question. Sorry, Michael, go ahead.
Yeah, well, in the strategic rail review, they talk about immediate term, and the reason Pauline may not have been sure there, that the document itself is 118 pages long, so some of this is buried in the detail towards the end on the delivery part of the document.
And in fairness, it was around about Tuesday that we did come to that. Right, let's get some reaction from Claudia Kennedy.
Yes.
Maybe you've the best chance. Well, you might have the best chance of ever going on a train from Letterkenny to Strabane, if the truth be told. But anyway.
It's a very ambitious project, and it shows the cohesion within the government that they could sit down on Tuesday and look at this document and say this is something we can work on towards the future. In terms of South Donegal, I think it's absolutely disgraceful that we've no connection coming from Sligo through Bundoran up through the Gap and then into Letterkenny. And Minister Eamon Ryan, in all of his press releases this week, has extensively and consistently spoken about Donegal and regional balance and the Northwest, and this was his aim and his goal. So in every press release this week he has spoken about that, and yet when you look at the map you have a glaring omission, obviously from the lack of that link from Sligo linking up into Letterkenny. And also just to say it's a very cohesive document. It's very detailed. There's 30 recommendations. It's looking over a 25 to 30 year period. Over 35 billion layout in terms of budget. Obviously, that's going to increase with inflation as well. So being realistic, I would like to see the government prioritising Donegal. Eamon Ryan has spoken extensively about Donegal, regional balance, as in this rail review being a priority for him. Let's see it now being put into action. I would like to see Donegal being one of the first projects, that first link happening through Letterkenny into Derry. I'd like to actually see that happening. And furthermore, for the other projects, we need a timeline, we need a budget, and we also need to look at the fiscal space from the European Union, what they're going to help us with.
Yeah, of course, but the problem is this is I mean, obviously the government has a better chance of delivering this, but this is like me effectively saying I want to build a monorail to the moon. Like, it's ambitious, isn't it?
It really is.
It's about delivering it.
It's more than that.
I am conceding. I am conceding that the government possibly can deliver this. Okay, and I'm being a little facetious, which is a little bit out of character for me. But what I'm saying is the kind of information you're talking of, Claudia, is the important information. Maybe more firm term timelines. Maybe because this is aspirational, isn't it?
Yeah, we have to be practical and realistic, and we have a budget. We don't know what way the economy is going to go in terms of the future. Yeah. So I would like to see it being prioritised, a timeline, Donegal being prioritised. Sort of Minister Eamon Ryan, in every press release he's done this week, an interview, has spoken about regional balance, looking at developing the economy of the Northwest, particularly speaking about Donegal. Then we need to see action on that. In terms of our roads infrastructure, in fairness, he spoke with RTE News in Carlow this week, and he spoke about his commitment as a Minister for Transport in delivering specifically on bypasses to take out that traffic and congestions from our towns and cities. And of course, our Taoiseach had spoke about the importance of our road network as well in terms of industry.
They are still at odds in relation to that, really, but we'll come back to that. Like a caller says during the week, Michael, and you can't help but think he may be right, that if the inevitable downturn in an economy happens, or if this is if this is slowed down, it'll be the Northwest that ends up being put on the back burner. Do you know what I mean? Because it's nice to think of putting a railway into Letterkenny, but if your money's getting tight and you want to continue with this, you do the big, the big projects that will benefit more people. So
I disagree. So there's a prevalence sometimes of, we're going to be last and we won't get it. That's not true. If you look at something like ATU getting university status, good things can happen here. That was the result of 10 years of efforts by LYIT and the other ITs to get university status. We can get things in the Northwest. To get it, we'll require public pressure and political support. So that means like Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael and Donegal also need to get their act together, and Sinn Féin. The Green Party have led this plan wouldn't have happened without the Green Party. For this to happen now and get delivered in Donegal, we need all the parties and all the representatives in this county and in the general Northwest to focus on delivery.
Do you think it was unfortunate that, given the fact that this was such a significant announcement, the focus being on rail and tying in bus services to rail and trying to think of things in a different way, and a really positive news story to decarbonise an alternative to roads and traffic, that it was actually the leader of the government that sort of, through the... that sort of confused the message then, saying, of course, now we're talking about roundabouts, and not roundabouts, but bypasses. But it were he that really says, rail's good, but we need roads. And of all the commentary I heard in it, I thought that was the most detracting from this announcement on Tuesday. What do you think, Michael?
I think it's a bit off message. So the only thing I'd say is that Leo's talking to his backbenchers when he's talking that way. And it's a concern. Fianna Fáil and everybody in Donegal would be concerned. We want to see the A5 delivered. People want to see the 10T project going ahead. So that's a concern. And that's he's talking to that audience. I think it was off message and shows poor judgment on his part. But he's shown poor judgment this year.
But he wasn't talking necessarily about planned. He wasn't necessarily.
There's one other thing I'd want to highlight, kind of related to this project. One of the significant parts of this delivery is the Derry down through Dungannon route. So over the projected expenditure overall is 36 billion over 10 to 20 years. 27 of that would come from the Republic, and about 7 or 9 would come from the North. The biggest problem here, one of the big problems here will be the delivery of infrastructure projects in the west of Northern Ireland. And we know from the problems with the A5, that's a real risk. Also, we know the way McGee College has been treated in Derry. There's a real issue with major projects being delivered in Northern Ireland on the west.
So Doreen, Leo Varadkar off message and playing to his backbenchers. It's not really...
Well, that is Michael's version of it, and you seem to be a bit pessimistic about the whole story, but...
Don't worry about me. Respond to Michael there.
Yeah, well, Michael, I think you're a party in government with Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, and I think it is very wrong of you to be so critical and to tell us to get our act together. I actually think we've worked well as a government, and I don't think what Leo has said has distracted from what has gone on. I do think he's being realistic. He was Minister of Transport at his stage prior to being leader of the Fine Gael party, and he knows what he's talking about, and I think what he has said is based on facts and statistics. He talks about 3% going up to 6% in relation to population footfall going on the trains. He's talking about maybe 10% of freight. So I think you're being very critical and very out of place as regards the Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael party getting their act together in relation to all of this.
But one of the biggest conversations at the moment, Doreen, is about the climate crisis. They're saying now it's not global warming, it's global boiling. The ongoing debate about whether or not, we should be doing our bit, and what about the Chinese and the Americans, and, people trying to keep people on message. And then you've got the leader of the government effectively saying, well, most of it really will still be using roads and all that type of stuff. I mean, it isn't on. It's not on message.
Sorry, he is leading the government at the moment, and he knows what he's talking about. I'm not going to sit here and take that from the Green Party. And I mean, some people think that this plan is actually way off the wall. I personally don't. I think it's very ambitious, and I think it's very good. And I think as a government, or any government in the future, will be able to keep it in sight. But meanwhile, I think, as Claudia has referred to, we have a lot of funding going into our roads, but we still need to continue at a pace that is suitable to the present day and age. Our roads in Donegal still need lots of maybe better time scales to be delivered, because I'm looking back in Letterkenny maybe 60 years ago when a certain councillor said, let's have a bridge over the Swilly. We're still waiting on it. That's the practicalities of it for the people who are in Letterkenny town and who are busy on the Lake Road, on the Ran Road, coming in from the mountaintop or whatever, coming in from the west. We need. Of
course we do. Of course we do. But Claudia, do you not think that to some extent, and I'll not labour this, but just to get your view on it because you haven't said it, that Leo Varadkar did kind of throw this big rail review news story under the bus a little bit?
I don't think so. I think he was being pragmatic, and I think he was being realistic, and he probably to a certain extent was talking to his own party and his own members. And we're all very aware of climate change and global boiling, and we've seen the devastation that's been caused in Greece and Italy over the past couple of weeks. I think from my point of view, it's really important that it's realistic. Let's start with the small projects. Let's start with the Western Rail Corridor. That would be very manageable and very achievable in terms of funding, and then look at what we can do in terms of Donegal in terms of achieving that rail network. And I think once people see projects starting, happening, being funded to completion, I think that will give people some faith. But I think we need to be prudent and practical with this as well. That's really, really important. In terms of, Michael's comments, we have been coalition partners through some very tough times, most notably COVID. We've got through that successfully. We've now have a war in Ukraine. We've got through that successfully, taken in over 90,000 refugees. We're now in an inflation and cost of living crisis, and our three partners in government have really cohesively came together in really tough times, and that has to be commended.
Okay, they've come all together. There's an awful lot of people that feel they haven't dealt with any of the issues you mentioned very well at all. I mean, they might have done it in a cohesive fashion, but there's a fair deal of criticism as to how they've dealt with them.
Well, I mean, we can look across the water into the UK and see how they handle COVID and what's happening at the moment now when they're going through a number of tribunals and looking at what's happening over there.
A lot of people would like those tribunals over here as well, so we actually could get to the bottom of how we dealt with certain things and to make sure we do it better if there is a better way to do it into the future. So finally, if you don't mind me saying, and I'm not saying this, Michael, as a presenter of a programme, I'm saying it as a member of the public here, I'm confused now what the plan is between Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil and the Greens. Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil seem to be on the same page. The future is in roads as well as rail, and it's just completely confused the message that was being delivered to me on Tuesday. And I mean that in absolute earnest. I'm not in any way trying to, but we've gone from right, okay, so rail's the future to, well, actually really rail is going to complement our road network. That's what I got from Leo Varadkar.
But the consistency is from the programme from government. We switched a 2-to-1 ratio of, we still spend on roads. In fact, more has been spent by this government on roads than any previous government. But the agreement was 2-to-1, that for every euro we spent on roads, €2 had to be spent on either public transport or active travel infrastructure. That's consistent. That's still happening. This rail review is saying there's going to be a massive investment in rail. That will be backed by the European Union. But we're also saying that there's a load of road infrastructure still needed to connect the Northwest and other areas of the country. So that's going to continue as well. So I don't think there's mixed messages. I think we're saying there's a 2-to-1 spend. For the first time, though, there's been no investment in rail infrastructure really in Ireland for the last 40 or 50 years. And in terms of the three parties, I take Doreen's point. All three parties have agreed. I mean, this is agreed at Cabinet on Tuesday. So regardless of my, sometimes scepticism about Fine Gael or Fianna Fáil, sometimes both parties have rowed in behind this and are agreeing to deliver it. So there is consistency. 2-to-1 ratio of spend, massive increase in expenditure on rail, and all three parties have agreed to this.
All right, we'll be back with more from our guests on the 9 till noon show after these.
Off mega summer sale at Right Price Tiles and Wood Flooring. Up to 50% off all tiles, wood flooring, outdoor porcelain tiles, cladding and bathware. Everything in store has been slashed in price. The Right Price Tiles and Wood Flooring 50% off mega summer sale. Stores nationwide. Sale extended until Sunday.
Looking for a flexible, affordable home improvement loan for your dream kitchen, bedroom or bathroom? At B&S Credit Union, we are here to help. Renovate loans from €5,000 to €70,000. Visit our website at bnscu.ie or free phone 1800 290 390, where our dedicated and experienced loans team are delighted to help you. Loans are subject to approval. Terms and conditions apply. B&S Credit Union Limited is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Hi, Paddy here at Shane Conley Cars in Donegal Town. Are you looking to upgrade your car? With Shane Conley Cars, you'll find makes and models for every budget. Great finance options, and we also accept trade-ins. Check out ShaneConleyCars.com or call in to us at Shane Conley Cars from Lonahur Road, Donegal Town.
Highland Radio time checks with Expressway. Travel Route 32 from Letterkenny to Dublin when you book online and travel for less. Expressway, bringing you the time at...
The time now is 24 minutes past 9. It was a packed house this week at a Defective Blocks Scheme Information Evening. It was said at that meeting that if Darragh O'Brien, the Minister for Housing, is genuine and cares about homeowners like he says he does, we want him in Donegal. That's a quote. In this room, and to explain how this scheme is going to work, as we just cannot see how it's going to work. Should the Minister accept that invite, Claudia? It's quite remarkable to announce a multi-billion euro scheme, claim that it's 100% redress, and not come up to Donegal to sort of celebrate it, say, I am here with this scheme, everybody. This is how it's going to work for you all. Do you think the Minister should respond to that call and go up?
I do believe that Minister Darragh O'Brien should visit Donegal. He should talk with the Micah homeowners. He needs to actually go out and see the houses and see the devastation and the pain and the suffering and the horrendous circumstances people have had to live in while launching this huge, I suppose, endeavour financially, one of the biggest in the state, in the history of the state, as a grant scheme. He needs to be here to explain the complexities of it and the nuances of it, and changes that obviously the Micah homeowners want to see implemented, and I think that would be really, really important. We do know he has set up a strategic implementation group who are to report to him. We know he has put in place a homeowners liaison officer as well, but that is no substitute for him as the Minister for Housing, who should be here in Donegal to meet with the homeowners and be on the ground and see the pain and the suffering.
Why do you think he hasn't then?
I can't answer that.
But why do you think, though? You're very intelligent. You must have formulated an opinion.
That's obviously his choice. And we know across the party in Fianna Fáil, our government ministers and other portfolios have visited Donegal. We've had Norma Foley, our Minister for Education, in Donegal. We've had Jack Chambers in Donegal. We've also had Stephen Donnelly in Donegal opening the recent primary care centre in Donegal town. So obviously within our party there is that tradition and ritual and meeting our people and being with our communities. I cannot speak on behalf of the Minister. I do believe he should be here. Now, our own Minister, Charlie McConlogue, has tried to do his best in this area around communication. He has held public meetings across the constituency. He has held clinics. He has visited people's homes on a one-to-one basis. So he has tried to do his best, along with our strong councillors and our councillor base as well.
Do you think the Minister has been left isolated in trying to sell this himself?
It's a very difficult question to answer, because I believe he should be here in Donegal answering those questions and responding to the Micah Action Group. I think it is his portfolio. As I say, it's one of the biggest endeavours in terms of history of the state in granting that funding, and he needs to be here to see what the problems and their issues are. Obviously there are issues in the scheme and that it's not fit for purpose currently. Now, we know it's a huge improvement on what was previously there from the previous Fine Gael government. So he does need to be here on the ground. I cannot speak on behalf of the Minister, Greg. That is his remit.
Yeah, but your opinion is what I'm looking for.
My opinion is that he should be here.
Yeah, exactly.
I have said it. I've reiterated
it. I'll just ask, why do you think he hasn't come up?
Obviously.
Do you think it's because he realises that he'd be on a hiding to nothing, that this scheme is indefensible?
regardless of what his opinions are, he has a duty to be here and a responsibility to be here, regardless of how difficult those conversations may be. And when you are a leader and you are in government, we have difficult decisions to make. We have very challenging conversations to have. That's what it means to be in government. As I say, within our party, across the board, other ministers and with their portfolios have visited the county, have reached out to communities. So I can't speak on behalf of the minister, but as a Donegal person, regardless of party, he should be here in the county, on the ground, listening to homeowners and actually seeing the devastation and the shocking horror that people have to live in, and it's heartbreaking. And across the party, Fianna Fáil members, CDC, councillors, across the party at every level, we have been working on this and battling on this and talking about it, and it has been emotional, it has been challenging, and our own members, Greg, and our own councillors are in Micah houses, and they are now going through this new scheme as well.
And I'm very pleased you recognise that part of being in government is having difficult conversations, because I would agree with you 100% that sometimes you have to face up to difficult conversations. Doreen Sheridan Kennedy, what's your views?
My view is I'm with Claudia on this. I do not understand why the minister hasn't appeared, but I just think he has an issue. He has an issue that I'm not sure he's communicating as well as he should be with the powers that be in relation to this whole housing crisis. And I do acknowledge the wonderful, work that's been done to date by all our representatives in the county and councillors likewise. I don't think all county council has moved very well in all of this, so credit where it's due, but it is time that the Minister of Housing was here.
Why do you think he hasn't come up to launch this scheme, explain this scheme, celebrate the scheme if he feels? Because it's not that long ago, just a couple of short weeks ago, where we had a senior civil servant says that it is the belief that this scheme will deliver 100% redress for the majority of people. So if you've got your civil servants saying that, surely you want to back that up and come up and announce it, cut the ribbon, so to speak.
That's right, but neither Claudia nor myself can speak on behalf of that minister. He needs to speak on behalf of himself. But I just feel there's some link there that we're not getting through to him, that he doesn't realise, this is massive. It's probably as big a thing as we will have to face in this county over these next number of 20, 30 years, and over the last 10, if not 20 years with a lot of people. It is awful. It is huge. And I think Joe McHugh referred to this when he spoke about there has to be a timeline where people are able to get advice and get help, and that all the questions haven't been answered yet, and it's going to be a rocky road. Claudia's right in that department. Being in government is about big decisions and about things being made, and opposition don't like it and people don't like it, and that's their job. But I don't know what it is with this Minister of Housing that he hasn't come, because all the party leaders have been down. All the councillors are actively involved in the Donegal County Council, as are the civil servants. So I would be very concerned.
Would you like to see a different Minister of Housing, Doreen?
Well, it'll not happen now within this government's time. It's too short a time to be looking even at that. But I can't understand why there isn't pressure coming from people in government to get this minister down here. Has he visited the other areas which are affected by any sort of block work like this? That's what I would like to know.
Not that I'm aware of.
So he needs to be called to task. We're not afraid to call the Minister of Education to task. We weren't afraid to call Joe McHugh to task. We're not afraid to bring, Charlie McConaughey is facing up to meetings and going in there and really flying the flag. I think he's doing very well.
But the Minister of Housing wouldn't even take questions on it. I mean, we tried multiple occasions. We tried multiple occasions to sort of just get an interview with him on the scheme, and he was unavailable.
Yeah, I know, but there has to be balance as well.
What does that mean?
You're very lucky, Greg. You're very lucky, Greg, because you do have access to most of our councillors and most of our sitting TDs.
All of them except one.
Yeah, and for his own reasons too. Greg,
that's fine.
He obviously thinks are right. So therefore, you're lucky that within the media you're able to do that. But it's a serious job being a minister, so there's a lot of work involved. So we obviously aren't getting through to this Minister of Housing, and I'm not sure, but I do think we've enough people representing us in Dáil Éireann to insist that he gets here. And I think Claudia's right. We can't answer for him. He needs to answer for himself. Nor can Charlie McConaughey, nor can Joe McHugh. He needs to answer for himself.
Michael White, what do you think?
That's his remit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as you know, or as I think I mentioned before, I'm one of the soldiers. My house, so we were approved under the first scheme, and we're like a bunch of other people were waiting to get moved over to the next scheme. So I don't really know what's happening next. So I'll put that so I would share the concerns of everybody in the Micah Action Group, and it's fairly close to the bone for us. But stepping back and pretending I wasn't involved directly in it, I absolutely understand the Micah Action Group's frustrations and what they're trying to press for. So some of the big points, again, just to recap in case people forget, they're saying about why aren't foundations included? Why is there a cap of €420,000? What about pensioners and others who have no access to credit? What are they going to do to try and remediate their houses? And why isn't downsizing? Those are four of the big points. There's more points that they're trying to get sorted out. So what they're really trying to do is to try and get the scheme changed. So I guess what Micah Action Group is thinking is that they force the minister to come up here and answer questions that'll help to drive getting the scheme changed. So I think that's a reasonable thing to drive for. What I also think, though, is you'd probably want to get the Minister for Finance up here. I suspect that a lot of this has been driven by the Department of Finance. They're nickel and diming this scheme to save 3 or 4%. If that thing, the cap at the 420.
Yeah, but in fairness, though, Michael, this is a multi-annual scheme. There's houses now with Micah that probably won't even, if the scheme were 100%, probably wouldn't even get a look in for a decade, 15 years, who's to say? Because there are people that it's clear their house has defective concrete in it, but the house is livable and probably will be for some time, depending on its location, exposure to the elements and all that type of stuff. So there's no real argument, really, is there? Especially when there's a clawback on some of this money as well. There's no real argument to sort of penny pinch on this. And I
absolutely agree. And I don't understand. It's ridiculous.
There's no evidence that that's what's happening as such, because there's an initial 3 point whatever it is billion, but there's no suggestion that that's a cap. It's a rolling scheme that will go on and on and on, and they suggest it'll even track inflation.
Yeah, but they're capping things like they're not budging on the current cap. The reluctance to engage with the banks and insurance companies. To me, it seems that they're trying to do some kind of risk management in case the numbers involved in the scheme get bigger. But they're cutting their nose to spite their face, or whatever that phrase is. It's going to end up being resolved in court if they keep with this attitude. And back to your original question, yes, Darragh O'Brien should be up here.
Why do you think he's not come up to sort of celebrate this scheme?
It could be just a human thing, It's just he knows if he comes up here, it'll be raucous and angry. That's he may just. Charlie
McConalogue attended that meeting earlier this week, and he was treated with respect. There was no abuse as far as I've heard no reports of it. We aren't animals up here. You know what I mean?
Well, no,
there's.
I'm one of them.
Yeah,
absolutely. Like, if you're asking me why I think he's not turning up, it's maybe because he's concerned he'll get a bad reception. But he needs to turn up, as Doreen pointed out. He is the minister, and he needs to be answerable to the people up here. And the scheme needs to be fixed. So, overall, I think the Micah Action Group are right to ask for this, and he should turn up and face the music.
Yeah, it is, and it is important, Claudia. We all have a role in it. Yeah, users. Me in the media, you as a citizen, but also involved in your party, the Green Party, as coalition partners, as is Doreen Kennedy's party. You have to hold power to account.
Absolutely,
to get the best for the people. That's what we're all trying to do here, isn't it?
Absolutely.
There's no harm in that.
No. And we live in
yes,
and we live in a democracy, and we have questions of the minister, and it is his remit, it is his portfolio, this is his scheme. He does need to be here to answer these questions on a very complex scheme. And I can't answer for him, but I know from a party level, from a membership level, to Cummins level, to our CDC level, to our councillors, to our senators, and right up to our minister, we have all been pressing hard on this and talking not just with the Minister of Housing. Even when Jack Chambers visited the constituency in April, we sat around a table, the councillors, the CDC officer board. Again, we pleaded. We had a very serious conversation. It was very emotive. It was challenging. And the emotion in the room from us as Donegal people pleading with our ministers, please do the right thing for homeowners in Micah houses, including our own councillors and members, our own Fianna Fáil members that are going through this as well. So not only have we been pressing upon the Minister for Housing to come to Donegal and to look at this situation and see and look at the change that need to be made, but also we've looked at other government ministers around the table, and we tried to press upon them the seriousness and the devastation and the anguish and really the suffering that people have gone through in Donegal. So we absolutely across the board Craig, have a responsibility to shout louder and say, you need to be here and this needs to be fixed, and it's a human rights issue.
Yeah.
Craig, if I could come in there, just, we need to hold our 5 TDs responsible and ask them, have they spoken to the Minister? Have they spoken to the Minister of Housing? And why isn't he coming down here? We need to get the opposition in the same boat. We need the whole 5 and the senators and the councillors to be fighting for the Minister to come here. End of story. Remember that Joe McHugh stepped aside from Fine Gael and voted against the government on the issue. And that was a huge move on his part. And one of the things he fought about was in relation to the foundations. Now, maybe you need to speak to Joe McHugh in relation to the response he got from the Minister in relation to that. So, there is a lot of good work going on out there by our TDs and they're trying their best, but they've got to keep at it. And I agree with the committee. They are right in asking for the Minister to come here, definitely.
A few people already pointing out here, Michael, that you talk about how this could be, about limiting exposure to the state, but there, a few different comments coming in on Facebook and elsewhere suggesting there's no evidence really that's when you look at the budget overrun in relation to the Children's Hospital and the inability to keep the likes of the RTE spending in check,
I agree.
or whatever. This isn't. If this is really the one where we're trying to get spending right, it's a bit of an outlier.
Absolutely. I think it's really wrong. And I do think that's what's happening, though. I think the Department of Finance are curtailing or trying to constrain this scheme. But you're absolutely right. They're blowing twice the budget in the National Children's Hospital. They're spending money like a drunken sailor, left, right and centre, but not on this scheme. I'm not the Minister for Finance. I don't know why I'm not the Minister for Housing. And but it will get straightened out. Nick, it'll either get straightened out by the Minister for Housing changing the scheme a bit, or it'll get straightened out by that court case. One way or the other. This isn't going to, these issues will be resolved, and they'll be resolved in homeowners' favour eventually, but it shouldn't take 10 or 20 years. It should be sorted out now in this current scheme. It wouldn't add that much to the total cost. It's very frustrating for everybody. The changes being required or being requested wouldn't significantly change the overall cost, but the Department of Housing are digging in their heels. I don't know why. And I suspect it's because the Department of Finance are telling them to. So,
yeah, Claude, do you disagree or agree or what?
To be honest, I don't understand where Michael is coming from. And a lot of people have said to me, and I have said this when we talk about finance, we all remember the banking bailout and what that is still costing citizens in this country. So if we're talking about the Department of Finance and costings, just look at what we have spent on a bank bailout, which our children and grandchildren...
This is a bank bailout. Because the banks refuse to engage. We're bailing out the banks again. We're restoring their assets, apparently.
But my point is, if the Department of Finance is talking about costings, and to my knowledge, that's not what I understand the case to be. We have excessive debt, and we have stood over a banking bailout. Obviously, this is a lot less in terms of costings. Why wouldn't we stand over this? Why wouldn't we do this scheme properly? Why wouldn't we look at every issue?
I'm not speaking on behalf of Michael. He's more than capable. But I presume when everything else doesn't make any sense, that's where you end up at. There's no evidence necessarily as such of it, but there is no other explanation. Why wouldn't you allow penalty-free downsizing? There's no reason why you wouldn't. Why would you risk building a house on concrete that's going to fail itself? There's no sense to that. Why would you leave older people or people in their 40s or 50s that can't get another 20, 30 years of financing? Why would you design a scheme that excludes them when people's lives are going to... So, I mean, no one would surely morally make that decision. So presumably, you have to arrive at the point that Department of Finances doesn't want to loosen the purse strings, because there's no other logical explanation, because you wouldn't treat people like this for any other reason.
I agree with everything you have said. It is barbaric to think that you would build a new house on defective foundations. That makes no sense. And all of the above, elderly people having to look for finance, very vulnerable people with special needs, the lack of housing that's available for them. We are in agreement with you as party members in Donegal, Greg. That's the first thing to say. Absolutely, I agree. This is why we need the Minister for Housing in Donegal. We want to hear his answers to these. We want to hear his responses. And again, it comes back to, if those PQ parliamentary questions do need to go to Michael McGrath to ask about finance, to ask about costings, to have both of them here in Donegal if that's what needs to happen. But I think, this is the importance of having our Minister for Housing in Donegal to answer those questions. And from a common sense point of view, all of those issues need to be resolved. How on earth can this be a successful scheme if you're going to be building on defective foundations and then perhaps having to come back to those problems in 20, 30 years' time and looking at our most vulnerable in society, our elderly, being potentially homeless?
But but Doreen, maybe it's just simply it is just down to you can't defend the indefensible.
I think it's political. I think that it's political, and there's going to be a political move between now and the county council elections or the Dáil elections the next 2 years, and that the Minister of Housing then will make an announcement. So I'm calling that now. I think it's a political move.
Why would he put people through the ringer
I
like
have
this?
no idea, but that I'm saying it now. I just think.
All right, we'll take a break. And Michael, I recognise when this issue comes up that you're personally affected by it, and it's that you're going through all the trauma everyone everyone who affected by it is, and I suppose it's difficult to try and detach yourself from that and comment on these issues. We all do, all of us, including myself. None of us up here are unaffected. Okay, that is the voice there of Doreen Sheridan Kennedy. We also have Michael White and Claudia Kennedy, all three government parties represented today in the show. It just throws up like that sometimes, and sometimes there's none represented. We try our best as we can, but anyway, it is what it is. But people are all clever enough to be able to comment, sometimes outside the party line.
From a Fianna Fáil perspective, it's a democratic party. We disagree, we battle, we have our conversations. That is our job as party members. We do not go into meetings and nod and agree with policy that we disagree with. And as Donegal Fianna Fáil members, we have been very vocal and very loud in support of the Micah Action Group at every meeting, from meeting various ministers to working inside the party to create change. So very much so. And again, if you're in a position of leadership, you have to do the right thing morally and show responsibility and leadership.
Yeah. Right, okay, going to take a quick break. Stay where you are.
Watch the show live now on YouTube, Facebook and at highlandradio.com.
Hi, Tarcoon. Or I vissi got gur chusan main a rebellunig san Irie amach. Cúg siad I bhullach leis dim. Tarker im of Ricky go fáil. Muckle. Da mé a kaint ag na ballí seo, ní stoppadís go Joe.
Seachtain náisiúnta na haireachta, fud na tíre idir an dair lá déag agus an fichiú lúnasa, tiile heritageweek.ie. Cláir de chuid de cóil aireachta le takeíocht ón líonra ife go aireachta agus an rion tíhíochta rialta seo túil agus aireachta.
Do you suffer from high cholesterol, menopause symptoms, digestive issues, anxiety, aches and pains, or a lack of energy? The highly trained team at The Natural Way Letterkenny can provide advice on natural remedies for a number of individual health issues. The Natural Way also has its own brand of herbal treatments to help fight fatigue, relieve digestive discomfort, maintain a healthy immune system, and alleviate common menopause symptoms. The Natural Way at Letterkenny Shopping Centre, your one-stop health shop.
Leisureland Redcastle, open every day from 12 till 5:30 p.m. Fantastic for family day trips. Excellent value for birthday party packages. For a wonderful family experience, check out leisurelandredcastle.ie.
Hi, it's Claire here from Claire Clothing. Our summer sale has started. I have loads of discounts of dresses, tops, trousers, all of the summer stock. So we'll see you at our summer sale in Claire Clothing, Main Street, Letterkenny.
Right, just a brief one before we move on from this, and I think this is what hurts people as much. We had it was on this program when we were down in the Clanry Hotel. We spoke to, and the gentleman's name escapes my mind at the moment, and I don't want to misattribute it, but put it to him that one of the solutions here would be modular housing. That it would help alleviate some of the stress and what have you. And it was ruled out. It was this modular housing is not going to be a solution to this problem. And then we have a situation in Sligo where there's just been a whole host of modular houses unveiled for migrants, and refugees, and no one for a second, I don't think anyway that I've seen, thinks that's a bad thing to do. It's the right thing to do. That's the majority view out there, I would suggest. But then you get people up here who at the same time are pleased for them I'll start with you, Claudia, but then wonder, well, it feels a wee bit like gaslighting too, to some extent. Why couldn't we do that for the people of Donegal as well? Do you know what I mean? As I say, this isn't to pitch the refugee crisis against the defective concrete crisis, but the policy difference between the two, it can't be ignored either, if that makes sense. So I hope you understand that it's a genuine question and not in any way trying to whip up any animosity or bad feeling.
No, and again, I keep talking about a common sense approach here, and I agree, modular housing for Donegal should be here. It obviously was proposed at many meetings. It would be a good solution for people, particularly if their house is being demolished. They have to do a rebuild. There's obviously no rental properties available in Donegal. The cost is extortionate. There could be special needs within a family. Obviously, if it's an elderly, vulnerable couple as well. So I keep coming back to this, and this is why the Minister needs to be in Donegal. Why are we not advocating and getting these common sense approaches to deliver for people in Donegal that have been through such difficulty and hardship and suffering? And as you rightly pointed out, we've that modular housing unit within Sligo. So again, that is up to everybody within the political parties, the Green Party, Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil, to go back to our public representatives, our TDs and senators, and put through parliamentary questions. Why is this not happening in Donegal? What is the problem? We need to keep asking those questions, Greg. We need to keep being vocal and loud, fighting on behalf of our friends and our neighbours and our family and our loved ones that are going through this. Nobody can defend that. Obviously, there is being political decisions made in Dublin without the herewithal of the suffering and the devastation that's happening within Donegal. Yeah. It's a disconnect.
Again, this is not having a go, but it is a fact. Like, this was agreed at Cabinet, and we do have a Donegal minister sitting at that Cabinet table. Like, if there was ever a time for a dissenting voice, surely it was when this was being voted through.
Absolutely, and that is why we as Fianna Fáil members have spoken with many ministers if they have visited Donegal. Charlie is one voice at that table, so any minister that has visited Donegal in any capacity, our councillors, our CDC, our members of the party constantly bring up Micah and housing and saying, what are you going to do when you vote with government as a minister, or in your capacity as a leadership, what changes are you going to bring about? So within the membership of the party, we have been fighting, Greg, and I mean that wholeheartedly.
You've mentioned that a number of times, and I get that, but Michael, I would love the opportunity to just ask that simple question as to why modular housing, quite rightly, is seen as a solution to a housing crisis for refugees, but is being completely ruled out for the people of Donegal. Again, it's a Can you imagine if that were to be announced? Say, look at the scheme. We can revise the scheme as we go. It's not perfect, but you know what we're going to do in the meantime? We're going to provide this type of housing in Letterkenny, let's say, and also in a central position in Inishowen, because we recognise the stress that families are under living in these homes. Again, that would, people would go, right, okay, that's a positive thing. Let's see where we go from here. But it doesn't make any sense as to why it's a solution in Sligo, but not the next county up.
Yeah, I agree. After the Ukraine war kicked off, that was treated as a crisis that required urgent and immediate action, and that action happened very fast. With the Micah, it hasn't been urgent. Everything's been slow walked. So something that was possible last year to deal with 70,000 refugees, nothing seems to be possible to deal with 7,000 families here that need to get action immediately. I think I want to agree with Doreen. She was saying it's political. Political pressure is what changes this. Also, the action of the Micah Action Group. We have a much better scheme than we had. We need to recognise it's $3 billion being earmarked for this. That's because of the Micah Action Group's work until now. And credit to Joe McHugh and the rest of them. The next step now is the local elections are coming up next year. This is when Doreen's absolutely right. If you want to get stuff happening, you've got a window of opportunity now for 10 months.
Yeah, but with all due respect, and I mean this with respect, say for instance now Claudia was running for election. It's to some extent speaking out of both sides of your mouth, and I mean that with absolute respect, Claudia, because you can say here in Donegal we need to do this, and if you elect me to Fianna Fáil, I'll make sure from within we will fight for this issue and change this. I mean, you're sitting here openly criticizing. My point is but when it comes down to local elections, we'll have. Yeah, but what I'm saying is you can campaign as opposition or as a government rep in the local elections upcoming and still get elected and nothing to be achieved.
No, my understanding of the point Doreen is making is that something would have to be delivered now this side of the election. The parties will want to do that in order to encourage their candidates to be elected. So there's a chance between now and say March of next year the pressure will be best applied right now, because Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael and the Greens will be trying to make sure something does get delivered here in order to improve the chances of people getting elected. That's what I think.
Right, okay. Do you want a last word on this, Doreen, or should we move on to our last topic?
Yeah, go on to the last topic, but I'm with Michael on that. This is the time. This is the time to put the pressure on, and this is the time that we need to be in our political parties and be actively involved, and also get the minister down here. End of story. Just get him down.
Staying with you, Doreen, would you agree we have a serious problem with policing in this country, brought into focus, obviously, with recent incidents in Dublin, concerns in Donegal over not enough cover? There are retention issues and recruitment targets aren't being met. Now the GRA is to table to ballot its members on a vote of no confidence in the Garda Commissioner. Is his position with everything that's going on tenable? Because it seems that if you go back 5-6 years ago, the Garda Síochána was a completely different thing in terms of morale within the force, but even public's attitudes towards it. It seems to have regressed quite a lot under Drew Harris's tenure. Are you concerned about it?
Well, I'll come to you on that first, because that's the question you put to us in relation to his leadership, and that the union are within the Guards are questioning his leadership on that. I think they're right to question it. I think within any union, if you don't question, you're not going to get any answers. So they're right to floor that and to have the conversation. They're as entitled as anyone else to have an opinion in relation to their leadership, and I commend what they're doing. I'm not sure enough time is given to training our Gardaí in this country. I like what Leo Varadkar is saying in relation to lifting the age limit, because I do think we have a core group of people over 35 who would be wise because of their years and would add hugely. There are issues on the ground. There are issues on the ground in Letterkenny in relation to the Gardaí on the street. There are issues, but cameras and various things being done by our councillors are proving to be
cameras
good,
aren't being monitored, though.
Sure.
You see, with respect, the cameras aren't going to be monitored. I can't understand what. I mean, yeah, great, more cameras.
No, sorry, cameras are monitored. I was down the town myself.
No, the cameras aren't. I know the CCTV cameras in.
I called to the Gardaí about an incident on the street, and the guard was able to tell me, I can see where these people are. We are monitoring it. We will be there. So sorry, Greg.
In that instance,
they are being monitored.
Right. Okay.
So I think you're just being a bit. No. And I'm not sure that Drew Harris was the best choice. There was a Canadian man maybe that might have been a better choice as regards to leadership in relation to the Guards. But I think too that the Guards have to work themselves within their PR with the public and with their young people. So there are a lot of issues.
All
there
right,
that need
Claudia,
to be addressed.
do you have faith in the Garda Commissioner?
Firstly, I think the GRA is 100% correct to go forward with this ballot. We cannot preempt the result of the ballot. That's really important to say. And we know that the ballot is to take place in the next 6 weeks, and they'll then have their special delegate conference in early November. And perhaps in that intervening time, there may be dialogue and there may be a change of mindset. We know there's big problems with retention. We know this year we have 71 resignations, which is very, very serious. It's a very demanding job, and these very brave men and women put their lives on the line every single day. We can see the rise in assaults on Gardaí in their daily jobs. We can see this year our target of 1,000 recruits will not be met. I think it'll be up to 800. I believe today we have 85 guards coming out of Templemore. So there's a lot of work to be done, and we need to look at the well-being of those men and women, and they do such an important job in keeping our society safe and keeping that social fabric of society together. So I think it's a very important process for them, and a lot may change. There could be dialogue, there could be conversation in the next 6 weeks. And it was interesting too this morning to see the press release from our Justice Minister about the 10 million that is being advocated for Dublin, and that's actually going to extra policing hours, extra over, because we don't have the Gardaí in place.
You see, and that is the problem. It's reactionary. As soon as it leads the news, then you get guards there. We saw the same thing on the Monaghan border. We need proactive policing. So Donegal has no chance now of getting any extra resources, because Drew Harris has watched the news and said, right, we need to put money in here, and we need to put extra guards in here, and that seems to be the policy of policing.
Well, in terms of Donegal, Greg, we're actually looking at a very serious issue. You would have reported on this during the week, of where they're actually now reviewing the Garda divisions within Donegal.
Of course, well, that's part of it.
Obviously.
I want to bring Michael in, sorry, because we only have another minute and a half. I can't, it was inevitable. I said it on this programme the start of last week. We're going to have a big announcement for Dublin because it's all over the news, and yet we're up here with serious issues, and very little seems to be. Michael, your last couple of minutes there, a minute and a half.
Yeah, well, there's one thing, you were talking about whether morale has got worse, but if you remember when Drew Harris came in, it was after the Garda whistleblower scandal, Maurice McCabe and all that, so morale was down in the dumps back then. Initially when he came in, people thought it was better, but he's lost the confidence, it appears, of a lot of his members. So if that vote of no confidence goes ahead, it's hard to see how he could continue in that role. I also agree, Greg, it seems to be very reactive. We've had a week where Dublin is being cited on the front of Sky News and CNN and New York Times, the announcement that the US Embassy saying it's not a safe place to walk around. No, that's not a good look for Ireland. But as you say, resources seem to be allocated in a kind of reactive way, so we need to get that straightened out.
All right.
So,
Michael, thank you so much for your time. I don't have any more time left, unfortunately, Doreen. Michael White, Chair of the Green Party in Donegal, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it. Doreen, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time and for joining us on the show this morning.
You're welcome, Greg.
Take care of yourself. Have a lovely weekend. And last but not least, of course, we have in studio with us Claudia Kennedy, who's teacher, of course, and Fianna Fáil Deputy Chair of Fianna Fáil CDC. Thank you so much for joining us, Claudia.
Thank you, Greg. It's good to be here. Thank you.
No, it's great to have you on the programme and to be able to tease these things out and have a conversation. All right, we'll be back with more after we take a break for the news and obituary notices.
It's the summer of savings at SuperValue. Enjoy great offers like selected household and laundry like Ariel and Bold Pods and Nikki toilet tissue, any two for €16. Exclusive to Real Rewards members only. And money off vouchers every week on the app. For a summer of savings, it's got to be SuperValue. T's and C's apply.
Time is ticking on the hottest sale of the year at Easy Living Furniture. The spectacular summer sale must end this Sunday. With absolutely everything reduced, unbeatable offers and 0% finance available, now is the perfect time to invest in comfort and style. Transform your home today. Our dedicated team are here to help. So visit Easy Living Furniture, Crescent Link Retail Park. The spectacular summer sale must end this Sunday.
Choosing the perfect stove is a big decision. Here at Charles Bunner & Sons Ballybuffet, we are one of Ireland's leading dealers in stoves and ranges in a variety of styles and sizes at exceptional prices. And with our professional advice, we're sure we'll find the perfect one just for you. So call 074 9131 700 or visit thestovestore.ie.
Get a great Clarence gift this week from McGee's Chemist in Letterkenny. Buy 2 Clarence skincare products, one to be moisturiser or serum, and you'll get a choice of 3 treat-sized essentials from a selection of 10. Which 3 will you choose? This great Clarence offer is available while stocks last, in-store at McGee's Chemist Letterkenny and online at mcgees.ie, where the best costs less. For any skincare advice, call in and talk to the resident skincare consultants, Mary or Gemma.
This week in Home Store and More, all garden furniture sets are still all half price. But better hurry, because when all the half price garden furniture sets are gone, they're definitely gone. Choose from a selection of rattan sofa sets, lounger sets and dining sets, like the Messina rattan corner sofa set for €374.50, or get the San Rocco grey rattan sofa lounger set for €199.50. Drop by your local Home Store and More, or visit us online at homestoreandmore.ie. Home Store and More, a happy home.
Household electronic and lighting waste? Recycle them for free with We at your local authority recycling centre or participating electrical retailer. See weIreland.ie.
Now is the time. Explore the current 232 offers at Connolly's Volkswagen Letterkenny. Register your new Volkswagen before July 31st and avail of 0% finance on the fully electric ID4 and ID5. €1,500 booster on the T-Roc Life SUV or a €3,500 booster on your SEAI Grant for the fully electric E-Up. Inquire today with our team on 074 9122 333 or see connellys.ie for more information. Terms and conditions apply. Finance provided by way of hire purchase agreement from Volkswagen Financial Services Ireland Limited and is subject to lender criteria. Volkswagen Financial Services Ireland Limited is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Live, on air, online and on the Highland Radio app. This is Highland Radio News.
Good morning, I'm Michaela Clark with the news at 10 o'clock. A South Donegal deputy has questioned why modular homes used to house Ukrainian refugees can't also be given to Irish people. 24 families have been housed at Durley Park in Sligo after the units were delivered under emergency planning laws. The development was started in February and the new residents moved in last week. Deputy Mark McSharry is asking why similar developments aren't used to house those on waiting lists.
When this plan was mooted at the end of October last, I raised the issue in the Dáil with then Taoiseach Micheál Martin, and I put the question to him that the 1,500 people and families on the Sligo housing list, the 2,400 in Donegal and the 700 in Leitrim, just to mention those in my constituency, had asked me to ask him, when would emergency planning law be invoked to provide them with modular housing?
Donegal County Council is being urged to prioritise defective block homeowners who are ready to commence remedial works under the new defective concrete block grant scheme. Some homeowners who had engaged with the previous scheme and had submitted their application 9 months ago fall further down the line due to the categories laid out now under the new enhanced scheme. Councillor Martin McDermott, Chair of Donegal County Council's Defective Block Committee, says it's vital that applicants who have already had a lengthy wait are progressed as soon as possible.
There are a number of sections now that the council are doing, 1, 2, 3 and 4, different timelines for different applicants, but I did stress to the council that we need to be sure that those people that have their stage 2 submitted to the council now and are ready to start, they are prioritised along with groups 1 and 2. They are every bit as important because they've been waiting for quite a long time. So they did it and said that they would do that and that they would try and get this done over the next couple of weeks.
The chair of the Green Party in Donegal believes a rail network in the county is closer than ever. The All-Ireland Rail Review came before Cabinet this week and recommends the restoration of a rail link between Letterkenny and Derry, as well as an extension from Portadown through Omagh and Strabane. Michael White told today's 9 till noon show that it will be easier to improve infrastructure in the region through rail.
Getting a connection back to the county and then having that route from Letterkenny, Derry down through to Dungannon and on to Dublin, that then becomes a really, really feasible piece of infrastructure. It's easier to deliver that in some way than it is to deliver a motorway because a lot of the infrastructure is already in place. It was never ripped up. So I think it's really positive and it's much more real now than it has ever been in the past.
A third day of rolling strike action in the retained fire service is underway today. SIPTU says fire service management must take sole responsibility for the chaotic scenes seen in the fire stations around the country. The union believes there's been a general strategy of non-cooperation from management since the start of the dispute. It claims phone calls are not being answered when firefighters contact the station from the scenes of incidents and management is not deploying the required number of appliances to them. Donegal County Council says public safety is their priority throughout the strike as 5 of the county's 15 brigades strike each day. Uisce Éireann is being asked to ensure better consultation with the public ahead of planned works. A 6-week road closure is due to come into effect in the coming weeks to facilitate the installation of a new water line in the Meanawheel area of West Donegal. Councillor Micheál Colmcille Osbook says many elderly people in the area will effectively be left cut off or forced to undertake a 20-kilometre round trip to leave home as a result of the road closure. He says it's a major inconvenience for many in the area.
6-week road closure will affect hugely the lives of the people who live up around the hills area and Tar and the general area there for their everyday living. People who are in full-time care up there with families and home help coming and going, Meals and Wheels, and people trying to just move on with their everyday living.
Weather now partly cloudy today with outbreaks of showery rain, most frequent later in the day. Highest temperatures of 16 to 20 degrees. That's all from Highland Radio News for now. We'll be back with an update again at 11 o'clock. Until then, good morning. The obituary notices for this Friday morning, July the 28th. The death has occurred of Bridget Boyle, née Marley, Garvan, Clohan, Donegal. Her remains are reposing in the family home at Garvan, Clohan. Removal from her home at 1 o'clock for Requiem Mass on Sunday afternoon at 1:30 at Our Lady of Perpetual Succour, Glenfin. Burial afterwards in Kilty Vogue Cemetery. Requiem Mass can be viewed on the parish webcam. Family flowers only, donations in lieu to the Clohan Day Centre, care of any family member or Marley funeral directors. The rosary will take place both nights at 8 o'clock. The death has taken place of Cyril Morgan, 55, Burwood, Buncrana, and formerly of Gloucestershire, England. Remains will repose at McLaughlin's funeral home, Buncrana, with viewing from 5 o'clock until 8 o'clock today and from 2 o'clock until 6 o'clock tomorrow. Funeral from there on Sunday afternoon at 1:45, going to Christ Church for service at 2:30. Private cremation will take place on Monday afternoon at 1 o'clock in Lakeland's Crematorium Cavan. Family flowers only, donations if desired, to Donegal Hospice, care of any family member. The death has occurred of Katie Ford, née Bourne, Carnamugga Upper Letterkenny, reposing at her late residence today from 11 o'clock until 10 o'clock. Funeral Mass tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock in St Eunan's Cathedral, Letterkenny, with interment afterwards in the family plot in Comwall Cemetery. Funeral Mass can be viewed live on churchservices.tv. Family time before the funeral tomorrow, please. The death has occurred of Mary Elliott Duhery. Mary's remains are reposing at her home in Duhery. Funeral Mass tomorrow afternoon at 2 o'clock in St Connell's Church, Duhery, with interment afterwards in the new cemetery. Family time please from 10 o'clock tonight and before the funeral tomorrow morning. The death has taken place of John Kelly, Listeen, Greencastle. John's remains are reposing at his home. Family time please from 10 o'clock tonight and before the funeral tomorrow. John's Requiem Mass will take place tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock in St Mary's Church, Ballybrack, followed by cremation at Lakeland's Crematorium Cavan. Family flowers only, donations if desired, to the Donegal Hospice, care of any family member. And the death has taken place of Noel Kelly, Plock Letterkenny, formerly of Ballycarbery, Cahersiveen, County Kerry. Noel's remains will be reposing at his late residence today from 12 noon until 10 o'clock, with rosary tonight at 9 o'clock. Funeral from there tomorrow morning at 10:15, going to the Church of the Irish Martyrs, Letterkenny, for 11 o'clock Requiem Mass, which can be viewed live on the parish's YouTube channel. Interment afterwards in St Columba's Church Cemetery, Dromahul. Family time on the morning of the funeral, please. Family flowers only, please. Donations in lieu of flowers if desired to Palliative Care, Donegal Hospice, care of any family member. For more details, including any family health guidelines for wakes and funerals, please go to highlandradio.com.
It's the summer of savings at SuperValue. Enjoy great offers like selected household and laundry, like Ariel and Bold Pods, and Nicky toilet tissue, any two for €16. Exclusive to Real Rewards members only. And money off vouchers every week on the app. For a summer of savings, it's got to be SuperValue. T's and C's apply.
Text or WhatsApp your view to Greg on 086 60 25,000.
And you're very welcome back to the 9 till noon show. Good morning if you've just joined us. You missed what was an interesting first hour of the show, conversing about some of the bigger issues of the day. Thank you so much for your texts and comments which have been coming in. Greg, modular homes only for Ukrainians, says a listener. That was the sort of question I was putting to the panel there. I hate everything the far right stands for, says this listener, but I'm at a stage where I think we need to take over the modular homes and evict the Ukrainian families and put Irish families in them. But what would that achieve? I mean, there's enough money. We're told economy's fantastic. Why is it? We've never been told it's because it can't be afforded. It's just not policy. Homeowners being left to procure and source contractors and project manage the reconstruction of their homes, all while having to source temporary accommodation and move out and move back in. Have these people not enough to deal with? The whole scheme's a farce unless there is a body put in place to oversee all the construction and put in place a structured programme. Would make sense indeed, wouldn't it? If Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael members believe what they are saying, says this listener, in support of Micah homeowners, they would resign en masse, every single member, including elected members, and stop pretending they're better fighting from within. That comes from Martin. Exactly. Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael Green reps cannot defend the indefensible, which is that Donegal does not matter. Now, if Micah had of hit Tala or Ballsbridge, houses would have been sorted many years ago. And unfortunately, or fortunately, we have evidence. of that being the case. Micah, Donegal's treated differently, in my opinion. If this was in Dublin, example, the pyrite issue, it would be dealt with by now. P.S. Fianna Fáil Housing Minister Darragh O'Brien is quite arrogant, they believe. Perhaps Ireland is not as wealthy a country as it tries to make out that it is. Well, that's what we're being told. Another, for the love of God, listening to the panel today, you'd think Fianna Fáil are not and were never in power. Absolute joke. And that's why it's important to give all different groups a platform, because it's you, the intelligent listener, and this is why I believe the public is incredibly tuned in, well capable of making its own mind up and saying, all right, okay, what they're saying resonates with me, or what they're saying is a load of so-and-so, I'll vote this way or that way. But by not hearing these views, you can't make informed decisions. Not pressing hard enough, full of talk, Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil, the Green wasters the lot, and that goes for the opposition too. More wasters, says a listener. I take serious issue with the claim by Fianna Fáil that they handled COVID well. Health experts at the time in Ireland were actively protesting some of the government's responses to COVID that paid no heed to what healthcare experts who were saying at the time. They really are quite farcical. There'll still remain so much fallout from COVID today. There is, and and the argument still stands. Some of the fallout too is, from long COVID and so on and so forth. No one cares about defective concrete outside of Donegal. If it doesn't bother them, it doesn't matter. Down the country, don't give a toss about Micah or Donegal. Now, we do use the phrase Micah. We recognise now that it's much broader than that, but it is the word that people seem to still choose to use. I'm not going to correct it, but we do know, and it's all accepted, that we're talking about more problems than Micah in the defective concrete block scandal, but that is a word that people associate with this. So on we go. The Irish people should have their say on the EU migrant deal. At the core of the calls for a referendum is the basic recognition of a truth, which is that en masse immigration, the government is deeply out of sync with a big section of the public. Another, the reality is, with the mindset of privatisation, the North West will never be feasible. Mid to long-term projects can only be delivered to disadvantaged areas through a nationalisation mindset, and history has given this, or proven this. That says Darren in Buncrana. And I agree, we have airports in the North West because they have to be government supported. And I would have thought when they're looking at that plan, you look at Sligo to Donegal and the places in between. I mean, you go, yeah, of course, right. It's not going to make financial sense, but you subsidise it, don't you? And then maybe populations shift and then it becomes viable. Here we go again. Ask Doreen, was Leo not the health minister? Look at the shape of the health service now. Fine Gael could not run a hen house, they say. Another, I don't see why projects cannot be fast-tracked. They've got great new technology for the laying of sleepers and tracks. Does the government have any money for it? Another, I wouldn't worry yourself too much about this pie-in-the-sky railway. What about the climate boiling crack? We will all have to be walking around with ice suits on. Well, you see, not here you won't, and that's what's going to make this strip of land, not Ireland, but, a certain position northerly and a certain position southerly, very attractive for people who can no longer live in areas that it is genuinely, where you're seeing the full impacts of the climate change, as people would have it. They're going to have to go to places where it's not as bad, which is pretty much along where we are. 12,000 homeless, and that lady said the country's doing good. Another question to Michael White. Has he concerns about environmental impact of war in Ukraine with the use of missiles, artillery and bombs for long periods? A very good question, which I'll try and remember and put to him. Why does Greg have all the government parties on today and no other opposition view? Is it a political broadcast for the government? Not fair, no balance. Do you really think that was a political broadcast for the government? And as I say as well, I'm reading a lot of texts here which you could perceive as being anti-government because people are really peed off and they're texting in. It's within all of that the balance is struck, where we hear views, whether you like them or not, and as I say, you can go, right, I like what they're saying, I'm going to vote for them again, or they're talking out of both sides of the mouth, so I'm not voting for them, I'm going to vote another different way. There you go. If you don't hear it, how do you make that determination? And now, obviously, a lot of people have heard and disagree, and I'm reading those comments now, and that is balanced and fair. Now, as I say, it is a scheduling situation because some people pull out at times, and there's not a endless supply of guests. Sometimes we have three members that are none of them are government. We try and avoid that also, not avoid it, but I mean, you heard there's no agenda or no plan to balance things in certain ways in a negative way. Do you get me? It's just as the way it fell. But as I say, here I am reading the comments in reaction to that, which is given plenty of balance. And there was I think, fair balance in the panel as well. More greenwash from the Green Party, says a caller. If this is the Donegal representatives of the three government parties, God help Donegal. Micah is proof of their record in Donegal. How long have Donegal people been suffering, and how long have these parties further traumatised them? So there's someone who had listened to them and has come up with their opinion. Regarding the A5 road, Leo Varadkar Fine Gael, while he was Minister for Transport in government, had the opportunity to deliver for Donegal and the North West, and he failed miserably. And we've many, many more comments to come. I do have to take a very quick break, and then we're going to get an update on the situation as it relates to the third day of rolling strike action being taken by the retained fire service. So stay away while back with that in just over a minute.
The county's #1 talk show, the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio.
It's time for NCBI Bingo on Highland Radio.
It's Friday, July 28th. You are playing on a yellow coloured sheet. The reference number is S10. It's game number 30. The numbers are 18, 81, 29, 53, 50, 15, 32, 69, 71 and 67. Phone your claim to 9104833 before 8 p.m. tonight, leaving your name, contact number and the name of the shop where you purchased your book. Get all your NCBI Radio Bingo information at highlandradio.com.
Did you know that new tertiary degree programmes are now available through Donegal ETB in conjunction with Atlantic Technological University? These unique degree programmes allow students to remain in their local region while studying for a degree. If you're interested in getting a degree in business, lab science, sustainable engineering technologies or general nursing, apply today. CAO points aren't required for this opportunity to explore university education in a flexible learning environment. For more information on how to apply, visit atu.ie/tertiary degrees.
Design driven by impulse, performance in tune with your emotions, an instant connection, electric. At Cupra, we believe in galvanising these instincts. It's why the Cupra Born, our 100% electric model, looks, feels and behaves unlike anything else on the road. Follow your impulse and visit cupraofficial.ie to see our incredible July offers. Visit Connolly's Cupra, Sligo. Cupra Born. Test drive today. Own it tomorrow.
Right, now, a third day of rolling strike action in the retained fire service is taking place today. SIPTU says fire service management must take sole responsibility for the chaotic seen in fire stations around the country. Stephen Kelly, Stephen Kelly is a firefighter in Letterkenny and county representative of SIPTU. How are you getting on, Stephen?
Craig, how you doing? Very good.
Right. When we talk, I've heard this referenced a few times, chaos or chaotic scenes in fire stations around the country. Are we seeing that in Donegal? And what exactly are we referring to there?
Here in Donegal, we are referring to management refusing to cooperate with the crews on the ground in relation to agreements that were made and turning out brigades.
So how, in real terms, does that work? Because there is claims of a strategy of non-cooperation from management since the start of the dispute. So for those outside of the service and none of the parties involved, what does that mean? So what's happening? What does this lack of cooperation mean? So give us a real-world example. What happens?
So basically, we put everything on hold pending the Labour Court recommendations. Now, they have come out and it was rejected. I think it was 80%, a high number of firefighters rejected it. So we told management that we would be only responding to life-threatening calls, and because we were pulling our labour, basically, because it is a dispute and we have the right to do that. Now, they have come back and said that we are obligated to. We told them first of all we would pool our labour, but we would respond to life-threatening calls because we wouldn't be leaving the community at risk. We have an obligation to protect the communities. So we left it to them to vet the calls and determine which calls were deemed life-threatening, which we would turn out to. So they refused to do that. Locally, local management refused to do that. They shunned that obligation to vet the calls and determine which calls were deemed life-threatening. Now, the department stepped in then and they came up with a list of life-threatening calls what we were obligated to respond to. And their list of life-threatening calls was everything from car accidents, house fires, to catching trees. So basically what they were saying was every single call was life-threatening, so we were obligated to respond. Now, that meant that we then obviously couldn't pull our labour in response to call-outs, and that was their strategy for us to stop us, I suppose, enacting our right to kind of reduce our labour.
Yeah, which is unfortunate from your perspective, of course. And I mean, obviously, with these Labour Court recommendations, and on the face of it, if you look at the percentages, they do seem like quite big increases. But of course, they're from a very low base. There's still no certainty, sort of, in terms of income. And this promise that we often hear of, well, we can look at this again as part of the pay review. The public service pay review. Why is that not acceptable for those that might look at the headline figures and go, well, you're doing all right there, lads and lassies? So why were these Labour Court recommendations not going far enough?
Sorry, before we just move on to that, Greg, just to go back to the Labour, pulling our labour now. Sorry, I just skipped over a wee bit. No
problem, Stephen. Take your time, yep.
So basically, when the department then classified everything as life-threatening, that led to the actual strike, which we are on as in Letterkenny here today. So we then said to them, if everything is life-threatening, we will respond, but we want a 3-pump turnout. And what that means is, if there's a house fire in Milford, that's a 2-pump response. So that would be Milford and the next area, which would be Letterkenny. And then a third brigade would be alerted to cover the area that is left vacant.
Yeah.
So that would be essentially 3 stations turned out to life-threatening incidents. That's the norm. So we said that's okay. We'll respond to all life-threatening incidences, but we want you to turn out the 3 pumps as would be, as the protocol. Now, they have refused to do that. So basically they're saying to us is every incident is life-threatening, but we refuse to follow the life-threatening protocol, which would be a 3-pump turnout.
Yeah.
And therefore, we have responded by taking this strike action, I suppose, for their non-cooperation with following their own protocol, as in 3-pump turnout to life-threatening incidences and situations. So we were forced to kind of go back to the rolling strikes, where we're closing stations, and that's led to 5 stations being closed on a daily basis throughout the remainder of the weekend and into next week. And that will be escalated to 10 stations being closed in Letterkenny on any given day. So, I mean, they have pushed us back to the strike, basically, which we didn't want to go back to, and that has come from non-cooperation from management and the department.
All right, okay, and thanks for that. That was an important clarification, so I appreciate you returning to that. So just back to my question before that clarification there, or that update, why does what's being proposed, where does it fall down? Why is it not going far enough?
Basically, they've come back with recommendations from the Labour Court, and they've been rejected, as I said. And they just don't go far enough. And, and the increases, and when you're standing outside looking at these increases mentioned from 24% to 32%, and somebody you might look at it and go, that's a massive increase.
Yeah.
But when you're getting €1 an hour, 30% isn't a massive increase, you know. So to break it down, like, you know, starting off in the fire service, somebody coming in, they're getting a retainer of 8,500, and it works out throughout the year about €1 an hour. Now we're negotiating kind of a week on, week off situation to kind of relieve the firemen more time off. And with them increases, it's coming in at about 11,500 starting off, and you might say, well, that's a fair enough increase, and you're only working 6 months of the year. But what that breaks down to in real terms is $260 an hour.
Mm-hmm. So in terms of going for a loan, a mortgage, that's what's considered. That's your core
pay.
If
you think about it, that's what it is. And if you think about it, like the working week's 40 hours a week, all year round. Like when you break down, if we work the 6 months, you know, the 40 hours working week is about 2,080 hours a year. We're working 4,300 hours in them 6 months. That's double the yearly working hours within a 6 month period for $260 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you have to look at it like that, and it's already coming out with the government coming out with these percentages, and they look massive to the public out there, but they're not.
Yeah, and so what would end this dispute from a SIP2 perspective? Are we looking at the retained fire service effectively, where it is a job? In other words, it's full time. It has the equivalent of a full time wage. There's more flexibility in terms of how close you have to be to the station, or when you're off shift or on shift. More resources, what does the fire service have to look like? The retained fire service have to look like to end this? Do you think?
It needs to be looked at from the department as a full-time job.
Yeah.
And
okay, that's the nuts and bolts of it.
And they have to get out of this looking at it as a part-time job where, you know, you work the second job and it's only you'll be called out every now and again. You have to get away from that there, because the pressure on your life and the commitment that you give to the fire service, it's nowhere near a part-time job, you know. I mean, it's more full-time than full-time stations, you know, where they go on to do their 40 hours a week and they do their shift, they're away home, they can go to the beach, do whatever they want, you know. Well, we can't do that.
And the argument is, presumably, if there isn't this change, then there will be no retained fire service because it's dying on its feet. People are no longer prepared to have this lifestyle any longer. And not enough people are, sorry.
No, people just won't come into it for nothing. You know, we're in a generation now where, you know, the young ones now know what their worth is, and they're not going to come in and give every week an hour to the fire service for little return, and it's just the fact of it. You know, and we need to change this mentality that, you know, you're on call and it's only a part-time job, and it's just not the reality. And, you know, like in Letterkenny here at the minute, like, I mean, Letterkenny's a big town, plenty of employment. At the minute as it stands, we're short men, and we can't get the numbers and haven't had a full crew for years, you know. And if we can't get that in Letterkenny, which is a thriving town, and you know, how are we going to get it in other towns and around the country and around the county? It just doesn't happen.
Okay, Stephen, thanks for that. We appreciate your time this morning. That's Stephen Kelly, who is a firefighter in Letterkenny and county representative SIP2, and I think that's probably been one of the more informative interviews, with no disrespect to anyone else, from my perspective as a listener, in inverted commas, since that whole crisis has begun. It gives a real understanding, I think, of the reality of where we are at. Any texts on that to 086 60 25,000, or you can WhatsApp that number as well, as you do know. A caller says, hi Greg, Doreen needs to get off her pro-establishment high horse. Radical transformation is required globally alongside change within Ireland. There's no joined up thinking re global warming. All these recent announcements are just a distraction for the mess we are in and an attempt to curry favour for the next election. Another listener says, I applied for the defective concrete scheme to make my home more sustainable. Sorry, I beg your pardon. I applied for the scheme to make my home more sustainable and energy friendly. I had the assessor out and not a single penny am I entitled to. He actually told me that it's the same for many families who've applied for it. I saw someone sent me documents. They were applying for a retrofit of the house and it was over €100,000 and the grants were something like £8,000. What is wrong with these people? This present government has this country on its knees. Where are they living? In space? Wake up and smell the daisies, for God's sakes. Your guests are like this so-called government. That's what one person's opinion. Doreen said a councillor said 60 years ago, let's build a bridge over the Swilly. How many of those 60 years has Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael been in power? Nothing has happened. She's just highlighted their total lack of commitment to Donegal. But I mean, the argument has been made very strongly by government representatives, councillors. Some of the strongest voices you will hear are government representatives. Not some of the strongest, maybe that's not fair, but equally as strong. They've been campaigning for this. It is, I suppose, central government that has failed to deliver on it heretofore. In Buncrana, is Buncrana included in this? Donegal's getting left behind in the modern age. Our roads are too small to handle the amount of traffic, but the railway would take the traffic off the roads. I'm at that age that I can't help and make the observation that every time there is an election, there is talk about a new airport and where it's going to be. But many elections later, no proper airport in sight, they would say. No, Inishowen was not included in those plans at all. Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, Labour and the Greens will prioritise rail for Donegal when pigs grow wings and fly, says a listener who's a bit cynical there. Good morning, Greg. It's pie in the sky stuff. This is to sweeten people before an election. We know it won't happen. A Lincoln to Derry will still take 4 hours to get to Dublin on a train. We in Donegal should not take the dregs. As always, we pay our taxes too. Councillors in Glenties most definitely want a rail line in Donegal, but we're fighting to get a greenway from Burtonport to Glenties. If the rail returns, where will this leave the greenway? I think that greenway is well progressed. Why did the RTE saga come off the airwaves so sudden? Looks like the bogeymen in government sent out their usual threat. I think really the story ran its course in terms of the public hearings. The Dáil went on its hollybobs for 9 weeks. Then there are a couple of independent reports which the outcomes are being awaited. Even Ryan Tubridy appeared before the Oireachtas committee. I'm not sure how the story really can be explored any further. It seemed that as much as could be gotten out was gotten out. Maybe I'm being a bit naive in that. It will return. But just at the moment, I just think the conversation was exhausted. But I could be wrong. I'm not sure how big there is a public appetite out there either for the media to keep talking about it. But anyway, our next guest in studio with us after these.
Watch the show live now on YouTube, Facebook and at highlandradio.com.
Tá mudna in ESB Networks ag gobar lena chintu go bhfuil síl glán letrach in ándún go léir in éidean. Agus mar chud san chlór náisiúnta an méadrú cliste, tá méadid cliste letrachis á sitsálinis agan i de cheantar. A bhuichastó is beag billa measta a dheofatú. Cáir se leat súla chuineal ar an méid letrachis a úsáidin tú ar bhealach níos fearr, agus ba fáil agad ar thorgaí agus seirbhísí cliste. Déanam it sangó leat rih hitsal de bhéidir. Tá tilla ólis le fáil ag esbnetworks.ie/smart meter.
Connect Hearing is open for free hearing tests. Our audiologist is available Monday to Friday for wax removal services at our Letterkenny Clinic in the Courtyard Shopping Centre. We also offer a home visit for those who are unable to visit us. Our hearing is our social sense. Are you finding hearing more of a challenge? Call Ursula today on 07491 13296 to make an appointment. Good hearing helps us to connect to our family, friends and loved ones. Connect Hearing, connecting you to life.
All men's wedding suits packages are now 20% off. Just book your wedding suits before August 31st and get a whopping 20% off. Don't stand still. Evolve. Letterkenny Retail Park. Terms and conditions apply.
Join All Folked Up live at the Abbey Hotel, Donegal this Saturday, the 29th of July. That's All Folked Up live at the Abbey Hotel, Donegal this Saturday, the 29th of July. Tickets available from Eventbrite.
Okay, we're joined in studio now. Again, it's good to have him back. Mark Lockridge, who's a Reformed Presbyterian minister in Letterkenny and Milford. Thanks so much for joining us. Good to have you up.
Good morning, Greg. Good to be back. Thank you.
You've written an article under the headline God, Sex and STIs. Why did you feel that this is something that you needed to write about?
Well, it's not so much something I needed to write about as something that I write a column every week, so you're always looking for something topical. So this was a report in the paper that there had been a 100% increase in STIs in Ireland.
These are sexually transmitted infections, just for those who may not know.
Thank you. So we're on course for a 100% increase this year, and I was just reflecting on what does that say about how current attitudes to sexuality are working for us.
So what's your angle here? Do you think we're too promiscuous?
Well, I think, maybe you remember back in the day, I think it was the late 90s, there was a song that had the chorus line, "Baby, you and me ain't nothing but mammals, let's do it like they do in the Discovery Channel." Mm-hmm. And I think the results are in that experiment, sort of the sexual revolution of the 1960s, and the playing out of that. The results are in and have been in for a long time, that it is harmful for us. While I was away on holidays, I was reading an interesting book called The Case Against the Sexual Revolution, not written by somebody that would be on my side of many issues, written by a secular, left-leaning, post-liberal feminist. And her whole thesis is that we've sold everybody short, that marriage is a good thing, that sex is not meaningless, that it's important. And her comment was, we've discovered this by the process of standing on 1,000 rakes, the cartoons.
Slapping ourselves in the face.
So in a sense, what I want to do is to stop people standing on the rakes.
Do you think that our identity, our gender, our sexuality has become so intertwined with the act of sex that people feel to express themselves, they feel that it's normalised to just have as much sex as you possibly can because that's who you are?
Yes, I think part of the problem is that whenever we get rid of God, we stop being a human being and we are the sum total of our actions. We become human doings. And then Freud told us that the most important doing is our sexual doing, and we're nothing if we're not sexually doing something. Mm-hmm. And so people have been trained to look inward to get their sense of identity, their sense of who we are. And it's actually a very precarious place to get our identity from, because our sexuality isn't a fixed either activity or feeling. It moves about, the sociologists tell us. So it's a very cruel thing to tell people.
But why? I mean, obviously there's a procreation thing there, right? But why are people so obsessed with sex? I mean, you don't care how often I blow my nose. Mm-hmm. Why do you care how much I have sex? I mean, at the end of the day, what business is it of yours? And I mean that with absolute respect. I mean, it's a bodily function that you see in a certain way, but it is really just a bodily function. It's a release like blowing your nose. So why is that so concerning?
Well, the interesting thing is you make that statement, but a secular, post-liberal, non-Christian feminist would completely disagree.
Yeah, but that's fine.
And say that the
I don't necessarily agree with her. I'm just having a conversation.
So she would say, and I find it interesting because this sort of backs up that what I would say is that what I say in the article is that sex is a Lamborghini, not a Nissan Micra. Mm-hmm. It's something to be treated with care. It has
why
a context.
Is it though? Tell me, why is it so important? Like, again, in terms of us walking around physically, we're all struggling to pay our mortgages. Mm-hmm. We've got major issues here. We've got awful poor mental health, mm-hmm. all the big stuff, right? Yeah. So why is it really? Why is it important how often people have sex or who they have sex with?
Well, I think it's important because there's much more to it than a bodily function, and that's what even the sociologists
so explain
and
that
scientists...
to me then, okay.
So the sociologists and the scientists are saying the same. One of the things, so that line in the song, "Let's do it like they do in the Discovery Channel, we're nothing but mammals," has proven to be wrong because, mammals are all over the place and they have sex all over the place and rape each other and so on, so we don't want to do it like mammals in that regard. But also... the scientists have discovered that there's biochemical responses that happen. There's a binding together that happens whenever people have intercourse. That if it's just a bodily function like blowing your nose, there's no biochemical binding that happens when you blow your nose. There is a biochemical binding, so that's why it hurts more whenever there's a rejection. Yeah. So in a sense, what I want to say is God had good reasons for saying this is something special. It's not simply a biological
Did he say
function.
that? So where in the Bible does it talk about, because, you would know yourself, over thousands of years, over hundreds of years in the world, there's been different attitudes to sex. Yeah. Massive promiscuity in certain times. Homosexuality, or as it was called, will not even reference that because there was no issue with it. It was just, whatever. So why now then? So what, as I say, these things go through cycles in life. People are going to interpret the Bible in different ways. Like, where does it say in the Bible about sex and not having too much sex with too many people?
Well, I suppose the Bible makes it clear that God created one man and one woman, and that was the context for sexual intimacy and for marriage. And then on every other occasion where it shows you different permutations of this, it's always displayed with negative consequences. One of the things that I find most fascinating, though, is we think the sexual revolution happened, let's say, in the 1960s, where there was a massive change in Western attitudes to sex. But actually, you can make a really strong case for the first sexual revolution happening in the first century when Christianity started to spread amongst the Roman Empire, and it radically transformed the promiscuity, the permissiveness of the Roman Empire, where a woman was seen as a product of a man, where a master could do what he wanted with his servants as slaves. And so Christianity radically transformed that and said, men, no, you're not to do what you want to do. You're to treat a woman with dignity and respect and honour. And so sex is to be confined within marriage. It called men to chastity, and it gave women a protection that they didn't otherwise have. One of the things that's fascinating is the Me Too reaction to the like of Harvey Weinstein is only understandable, really, in a Christian context. If we left out Christianity, Harvey Weinstein is just your Roman slave owner who does his thing with whatever he wants.
I would disagree. People can be outside Christianity or any religion for that matter and know what's morally right and what's morally wrong.
Well, the question is where does that knowledge of moral right and wrong come from? Well, and again, secular historian Tom Holland, secular writer here, says the air we breathe for the last 2,000 years has been Christian air, and we don't realise the extent to which that has shaped us.
So, I mean, would you be of the view then, Mark, that sex outside of a heterosexual marriage is wrong?
I would say that yes.
And that would include same-sex sex as well. I mean, obviously, if you have to go all in here because you've pretty much said it already.
You're either going God's way or you're not going God's way.
Yeah.
And I think that the problem is, I want to step everything back a bit and say that our problem is.
Yeah, but we can't skirt around the stuff. We can't then now, Mark, because this is a conversation. I'm responsible to get it all out here. Yeah. Because we can't have subliminal messages either being put out to listeners. But what you're saying, though, effectively is also that you are against same-sex couples.
Well, again,
because it's not in the Bible.
We've been down this road before.
I know you don't want to say it, but that's the truth. Yeah. It's the truth.
But I'm also against. Let's consider that the majority of people are heterosexual, and that the majority of heterosexual sex that happens outside of marriage, I say, is wrong. So that's the majority of the issue.
Now there's a moral issue here, and I know you've put this on STIs. You could equally have talked about the depopulation of the world. The population of the Western world is dropping drastically. It's the biggest threat to civilization. I was looking at some statistics yesterday, and pretty much in every country the population has fallen dramatically. People aren't reproducing. The world's not set up like that anymore. Now, in certain countries they are, but in other countries like America, Canada, Ireland, Britain, France, Germany, all of these countries have seen really quite significant drops in their population.
That's right.
So that's an issue. That's a big issue.
Well,
as to people should be getting married and having more sex then, in your view.
Absolutely.
Without protection.
Well, I think people need to know their own circumstances. There's no point having more children than you can financially support. That would be irresponsible. Or more children than your body can physically support.
Yeah.
I think God calls us to be good stewards of the world in which we're in, good stewards of our own bodies, not to be reckless either way. But yes, I think the problem is that we have divorced. God gives sexuality for delight and for procreation and for binding people together. And so procreation isn't the only purpose, but it is a purpose. And we have separated that from the act itself to the detriment of society, declining populations and so on.
Yeah, and it's the multiple partners as well, and the influence of pornography. I mean, there's an awful lot wrong. I mean, maybe a lot of people might not go as far as you might, but I would probably agree that I don't know how fulfilling or healthy having lots of sex with multiple different people is for a person and their well-being. I don't know. I don't have an insight into it, but I would go that far with you maybe that I could sort of say, right, well, I can see how it can make someone feel or what have you.
Well, again, part of I'm going to quote Louise Perry again because I like quoting people that aren't coming from my camp, showing that this isn't simply a narrow-minded Christian perspective. One of the things that she's saying is we're discovering that the fruit that grew out of Christianity has actually been beneficial to the West. And what she says is what we're looking to try, the experiment is, can we continue that, having that fruit without the roots? Again, it's coming back to, in the ancient world, multiple partners was the prerogative and of well-to-do, powerful men, and they got what they want, they took what they want, and there was a dearth then for everybody else. And doing things, I would say, God's way brought a leveling of the playing field for everybody, and was actually really beneficial for society. And again, Louise Perry brings this out in her book that marriage tames men. Marriage is good for society. It's good for children. It's good in lots of unexpected ways. It lowers crime rates and all sorts of things. So, multiple people having multiple partners also means that there's been an increase in children not knowing their fathers. And that's harmful for children as well. And so,
men a lot of it comes back to men being the problem.
Well, I think there's been a history of men sowing their wild oats and thinking that sex is something that you do to people rather than something you do with a person. And again, you mentioned pornography. I saw a survey a few years ago that says that they carried across Western European countries. It talks about the average male, the finding spends, I think it was 70 minutes a week watching pornography. And one author quipped, that's more time than they spend showering. But that then has damaging ramifications for how they see sex, how they see a member of the opposite sex, for how they see violence. And we have increasing amounts of violence. We have the part of the survey that we looked at in the article was that there was a huge increase in STIs amongst 15 to 19-year-olds. And there's also been a huge increase in girls reporting all sorts of injury that has been learnt through pornography. So we are not learnt by fellas.
We've discussed that. We've discussed that because the Dublin Rape Crisis Centre have said they're looking at the figures last year. They were quite concerned at an increase in violent sexual assaults. But there you have the Dublin Rape Crisis Centre. That's not a Christian group. It's not advocating on behalf, but it's probably saying an awful lot of the same stuff you're saying. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, this isn't narrowly a Christian thing. I say this is God's world. He made it. It's going to work according to his rules.
See, just though in terms of, you see, I could look through the Bible and maybe it's not for man to judge. Maybe it's not for you to judge. The Bible talks an awful lot about love and unity and the church now talks about sort of forgiveness and understanding and, to sort of look at the Bible and come out from that it's bad if two men who love each other are together. I don't know. that kind of really puts me off. It's not relevant to me, but it puts me... That's not love. That's not understanding. That's not care.
Well, I suppose we have to ask a question. Does God have the right to tell us what to do?
Well, it's...
If there is a God, would he have the right to tell us what to do?
You're telling us what to do. I mean...
Yeah, but if there is a God who made everything, would he have the right to tell us what to do?
I don't know. It depends which God. It depends.
I suppose if there is a God who made everything and he was giving us instructions, does he?
But he gave man free will, did he not?
He also gives us instructions. That's what the Bible is.
Well, there's a bit of a...
The free will is, here, you can do what you want, but actually it's all going to go pear-shaped if you do it only your way. Here's the best way for it to work. So the problem I find is that with many people, whenever you ask them the question, does God have a right to tell us what to do? They say no. And so the issue isn't actually this sexuality or that sexuality, it's the very concept of God.
Right, let's get away from that and say where we are at the moment now, whether someone's religious or not religious. I would say most parents or guardians, I think, would be trying to advise their young people to, to not have multiple sexual partners, to try and get into they would like to see their children in a happy, loving relationship, right? Okay,
yep.
So... to some extent, I think in that you're pushing an open door.
And one of the reasons I'm doing it is I want to encourage people in that.
I get you, but where we're at the moment, it's young people learning about sex on pornography, and but you don't want them to be taught about it in school either. So I don't know where.
Well, no, anyway, I want them to be taught about the harm and the damage that it causes.
Yeah.
Well, one of the proposals, one of the suggestions from the NCCA was that pupils read a script of a pornographic film. Now that's different from talking to them about the inherent dangers.
But anyway, because I've only got a minute or two. Yeah. So how do we pull back from where we are at now? Do you know what I mean? Because I think a lot of people would think that, right, okay, maybe we are losing the run ourselves a little bit in terms of promiscuity, multiple partners, understanding consent and all that type of stuff. I think a lot of parents share those concerns, whether they would go as far as you do or not. How do we pull back from it, though? How do we pull back from the brink?
I think we need to help people see that sexuality is not the core of who a person is, that we are not human doings, we are human beings, and that we're to get our identity from multiple things, that to get our identity from our sexuality is a very precarious and cruel place to put people, and that they're to get their identity from doing multiple things, but particularly to get their identity from God. They're human beings before they're human doings. And to put sex in a context.
But just funny, Mark, and I'm sorry to get back to this, but do you know gay people? Have you any gay friends?
Yes.
Is it not uncomfortable? So do I. I've got some people really close to me who I love dearly, and I want them to be happy, right? And I know them; they can't be happy with a woman because that's not what they're attracted to. And then I speak to you, Mark, and I respect you and respect your opinion, and you want to deny them love and happiness.
I want to tell anybody.
Yeah, but that breaks my heart. That does, because
I want to tell people
that
we shouldn't get our happiness from our circumstances or from looking inwardly. That's dangerous, because whenever that thing is taken from us, we feel utterly crushed. I know I lost all my sport when I was 20, and if I'd got my identity from doing my sport, I would have been crushed completely. Lost it all because I lost the sight in this eye. I was told not to do anything, and that's a terrible feeling, and that leads to despair.
But you're a father, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah. So you know that is.
So I tell my kids they're not to get their happiness.
No, I'm not going to get. I'm not going to get as personal as that. My word. No, I'm not that type. But my point is that you haven't lost that. You have that. Do you know what I mean? Like.
Yes, but it all depends on what we put all our hopes into and where we get our identity from. Okay. The issue is identity, not sex per se.
Mark, fascinating. Listen, a lot of people listening are going, you know what, Mark, you're talking a great deal of sense, and I'm to sit here and tease things out with you as well.
No, indeed.
Okay? And that's why we invite you, and that's why you're also always very gracious. I think people who agree with you will go, fair play, Mark. People who disagree with you, you know what they're going to say. And maybe there's people on the fence that will go, you know what, he's pushed me one way or other. Yeah,
and they can come and talk to me.
And that's how we get through this life, through conversation and hearing.
Well, that's what we need in this society. We need debate and discussion.
And that's what we're doing, Mark.
Indeed.
Lovely to have you up. Thanks for engaging.
All the best.
At Centra, shop smart and feel good with great offers this week. Like Centra Fresh Hour Chicken Fillet 680 gram, only $7.50. Dr. Ucker Ristorante Pizza selected range, now €2 each. And Screaming Devil Côte de Provence Rosé, only €12. Centra. Live every day. Enjoy alcohol sensibly.
How Hey, John, quick, write this number down. 91 48 234.
Say that again, Mike.
91 48 234.
So what's that, Mike?
The number for Fleming Doors.
Fleming Doors?
No, Fleming Doors. You know, industrial doors, garage doors, roller doors, insulated doors.
Ah, OK, Mike. Give me that number again.
91 48 234.
Fleming's, engineering solutions for 150 years. Call us now on 074 91 48 234.
If the medical experts get it wrong, everything changes. From misdiagnosis or delayed diagnosis to surgical injury or even poor treatment, all have physical, emotional and financial consequences. We're here to help. So if your treatment didn't go according to plan, speak to our experienced medical negligence team at McElhenney and Associates. Find us online or call 074 917 5989. McElhenney and Associates Solicitors, Stranorlar. In contentious business, a solicitor may not calculate fees or other charges as a percentage or proportion of any award or settlement.
Charles Bunner & Sons Ballybuffet are the leading suppliers of solid fuel and wood pellet stoves and ranges, bringing warmth and comfort to homes in Donegal and beyond for nearly 50 years. So visit our showrooms in Ballybuffet or call us on 074 9131 700 or online at thestovestore.ie for more details.
Don't miss an incredible night of country music with Derek Ryan at the Highlands Hotel Glanties on Friday, July 28th. Tickets are €20 and available from ticketstop.ie or by phoning the Highlands Hotel reception. That's Derek Ryan at the Highlands Hotel Glanties, Friday, July 28th.
Brian McCormick, Sports and Leisure, Main Street, Letterkenny. Looking for the triple black option. Vans Selden with a leather upper, only €60. Save €15. Adidas and Nike triple black trainers will have you ready for back to school. Kids footwear from Nike, Adidas, Asics and Vans in all sizes. Get the trainer that fits you best by using your safe size experience and get to know your feet. Brian McCormick, Sports and Leisure. Click on bmcsports.ie and get your free delivery.
Did you know that all household electronic and lighting items are free to recycle? When you recycle e-waste, you're not just preventing it going to landfill, you're also giving it new life, recovering valuable resources that can be used again, and stopping harmful substances from entering our environment. Recycle for free with We at your local authority recycling centre or participating electrical retailer. Visit weireland.ie for details. A message from We Ireland, the government-approved scheme for electrical and battery recycling.
Mr. Blue Sky, please tell us why. The Lotto jackpot is an estimated €4 million. Play responsibly in-store, in-app or at lottery.ie. The National Lottery. It could be you.
Now is the time. Explore the current 232 offers at Connolly's Volkswagen, Letterkenny. Register your new Volkswagen before July 31st and avail of 0% finance on the fully electric ID4 and ID5. €1,500 booster on the T-Roc Life SUV or a €3,500 booster on your SEAI Grant for the fully electric E-Up. Inquire today with our team on 074 9122 333 or see connellys.ie for more information. Terms and conditions apply. Finance provided by way of hire purchase agreement from Volkswagen Financial Services Ireland Limited and is subject to lender criteria. Volkswagen Financial Services Ireland Limited is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Watch the show live now on YouTube, Facebook and at highlandradio.com.
And you'll be able to see me, Michael and Fanula for That's Entertainment coming up after the news headlines now read by Michaela Clark.
Thanks, Greg. Good morning. 5 of Donegal's 15 fire brigades are on strike today as rolling strike action continues. It's in response to a lack of cooperation from management as it's claimed the required number of appliances are not being deployed to scenes of life-threatening emergencies. Firefighters are picketing today outside stations in Donegal Town and Killybegs. A South Donegal deputy has questioned why modular homes used to house Ukrainian refugees can't also be given to Irish people. 24 families have been housed at Durley Park in Sligo after the units were delivered under emergency planning laws. The development was started in February and the new residents moved in last week. Donegal County Council is being urged to prioritise defective block homeowners who are ready to commence remedial works under the new defective concrete block grant scheme. Some homeowners who had engaged with the previous scheme and had submitted their applications 9 months ago fall further down the line due to the categories laid out now under the enhanced scheme. The chair of the Green Party in Donegal believes a rail network in the county is closer than ever. The All-Ireland Rail Review came before Cabinet this week and recommends the restoration of a rail link between Letterkenny and Derry, as well as an extension from Portadown through Omagh and Strabane. Michael White told the 9 till noon show earlier that it will be easier to improve infrastructure in the region through rail. An additional €1 million under the local improvement scheme has been announced for Donegal. It's part of a further €16 million injection for upgrade works on rural roads and laneways announced by the Minister for Rural and Community Development. It brings the total allocation for the county under LIS this year to almost €2 million. And Uisce Éireann is being asked to ensure better consultation with the public ahead of planned works. A 6-week road closure is due to come into effect in the coming weeks to facilitate the installation of a new water line in the Mina Wheel area of West Donegal. Those are the latest headlines. We'll be back with an update again at 12 noon.
OK, Michaela, thank you very much indeed.
It's the summer of savings at SuperValue. Enjoy great offers like selected household and laundry like Ariel and Bold Pods and Nikki toilet tissue, any 2 for €16. Exclusive to Real Rewards members only. And money off vouchers every week on the app. For a summer of savings, it's got to be SuperValue. T's and C's apply.
Okay, that's entertainment with Michael and Fanula. Both of you, a very good morning to you. Michael, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Michaela. Fanula. Thank you
just
very
love
much.
her more than close.
Oh, it's not that. No,
Good morning.
No. When she starts processing payroll, maybe, but until before we get started, off the back of your recommendations, your recommendation, I watched the Wham documentary on Netflix. It was It was a joy. I thought it was lovely.
Isn't Andrew Ridgeley an unbelievable person to think that he was 24 when he had that kind of like personal insight?
And genuinely, he was like, I'm off the train here now. This is a George Michael train.
Yeah,
he's got nothing but my love and support.
He started the train. He drove the train for the first 2 years, getting it up and running and through all the difficult times. And then once it got up and running, he kind of went. I thought it was lovely. There was a line in it where somebody asked him, because even that at 24. To have what at that time was your kind of less attractive, less confident, friend, although best friend. And they kept saying to him, so when you leave and George has a solo career, which I would say would be a little bit insulting all the time. And then he said, well, I hope to just do it with grace. And I was like, my God, that's just insight for a young man like that.
Well put together. And I know a listener last night talked about the source material already being out there. But the way it's structured in that, to all intents and purposes, both were sitting on 2 chairs beside each other. They even cut interviews whereby one was finishing the point. So, if you didn't realise that one had passed on and the other hadn't. And then I went down the rabbit hole then of looking into George Michael's life post-Wham, which there was a great deal of success. But he just went completely off the rails. And he said then in a subsequent interview, or maybe it was at the end of that, that he missed his best friend. He didn't want to keep him in the checks and balances.
Yeah, I know. After watching that documentary, that's what I was thinking as well. And I was watching it with my cousin, and we were just saying, I'd say if Andrew Ridgeley had managed to stay in his life, and apparently that was not Andrew's choice, and I'm not sure.
Well, George Michael said in it that for me to get where I have to go, the relationship completely has to change. Not just the Wham, but actually just their friendship was the impression I got from his comments.
Which was, I don't understand, but I know Ridgie did try to, I know, says I, like as if we're best friends. It has been reported, better way to phrase it, that Ridgely did try to get in contact with them at different times in his life, particularly, when he had difficulties. Like you say, his professional career took off, his personal life there was a lot of things that kind of kept coming up over the years. You know what I mean?
The stuff about meeting people in public that come up a couple of times.
Yeah,
but whatever. But it was definitely is the issues with drugs, because every other year in the noughties he was coming foul of the police. He talked about massive cannabis usage. He was smoking 26 joints a day at one point.
Yeah,
I mean, that's going to have just a terrible impact on your well-being and how you can function, but also harder drugs as well. I think the thing about his sexuality was not really obviously he can make his own choices in life, but it was more the danger that he was putting himself in. Yeah,
particularly at certain times, and he just didn't seem to have much care for himself, self-care. You know what I mean?
Yes, he was so driven to get to where he wanted to go. It was great. It was crazy because he ended up in that situation because he sacrificed. But he just must have run out of his own, directing himself. I don't know how to phrase it.
Yeah.
But he gave up everything that would have prevented that. But he thought he had to give that up to get to where he wanted to be. And he did get to that. But like everything, even Wham, it was fleeting. I mean, he didn't have a great deal of success. He didn't have a great deal of success at all in this century.
No.
Or is it from 206 on, 208 on? Do you know what I mean? He didn't really do very... But anyway, as I say, it's one of
the
those...
Outside album, that's about the last time that you kind of think of him as being something big.
It's a really enjoyable documentary. It doesn't get in too deep. It doesn't try and educate you in anything.
Isn't Andrew Ridgey's mum amazing?
Yeah. it tells the story of... It just tells the story. And it just finishes with, and this is not a spoiler, about what Andrew went on to do, what Michael went on to do. You know what I'm on about? It doesn't try and it doesn't over focus on him post Wham, and it doesn't get into this sort of sadness like it really is very well put together. I really find it quite uplifting in a way, because it was like, wow, they had so much fun and they split up on good terms and they had their last concert.
I know,
as you say, Ridgely was able
it.
to take the hand of himself a bit, and it was just actually, wow, okay.
I know.
This is not your typical story.
No, that's exactly it. I think that's exactly what it is. I think everybody should give it a watch. If you've any kind of memories of it at all, it'll bring back an awful lot. I know for me, just some of the little videos and the shorts and that kind of thing that you used to wear in Wham, you just remembered yourself as a young, much younger person jumping around the bedroom. And Wham was one of those bands that nobody took seriously, but they were very fun.
Yeah.
And you couldn't listen to their stuff without it evoking some kind of an emotion for you. Like some of the, the slower stuff was all very smooshy, and people have, memories back to the old slow set and the local
like
school
some of the
dance
music age as well. Some of it is like really of an era.
Yeah.
I think.
Oh really? Oh yeah. No, let's see, I'm into
the early
that.
rapping stuff in particular.
Oh, that was awesome. I love that era, so I have no problem with it.
Yeah, okay.
But I just think it just makes you just think of those happy times usually in your life.
And they went to China to break America, and as I say, no spoilers in there. Watch it, enjoy the ride. It's fun, even if you don't like Wham. It didn't really evoke any memories for me because Wham, I was too cool for Wham. Do you know?
Yeah.
And also, they were a wee bit before my time, believe it or not.
I believe
before my time. But no, it's actually just it's actually really quite a nice story of two really good friends, and it sort of stops before things go terribly wrong. All right, so all I see on social media are people dressed in pink or standing inside massive plastic doll boxes, having a wonderful time, seemingly going to watch Barbie. So I'm going to start with you, Michael. Yeah. You went and saw Barbie in the cinema.
I went and seen Barbie. Saw.
It's wrong, but I want you to use
that word.
Anyway.
Okay, right then. That's another franchise. We're cross-referencing another franchise, which is back for like a 10th or 11th.
I listen back sometimes, or you happen to be in the car and the podcast comes on, and I blatantly use wrong tenses.
Oh, yeah.
And words, and I know why I'm doing it, but I still do it.
For me, it's the blog. When I go back on old, like I might go back on old Avengers reviews, and I'll see sentences that I put up, because I just write a rough draft, put it up, and then I'm like, oh my God, I'm rewriting things from like 2 years ago, because they're completely wrong English. Like, so anyway, Barbie is a fantastic film. It's definitely one of the best fantasy films I've ever seen. Wow. It's hilarious. It met my expectations going in, and it exceeded my expectations. I had seen this director, Greta Gerwig, do Little Women back in 2018-19, and I loved that movie. It was my first time to see that material dealt with, and I loved her take on it and what she did with that story, and I loved her casting. So Barbie it's so much fun. It's a fantasy film that pulls off a really difficult balancing act. It creates this reality where there's the real world and the Barbie world. Characters cross over and back. Greta puts forward the rules for how this happens. She does it quite cheekily. She explains it a couple of times, and then one of the characters is like, yeah, don't think about it too much. And she gets away with so much stuff by just going with it. She tells a very interesting story. It's not so much a fish out of water story like Elf. There's about 5 or 10 minutes in the film like that, where Barbie and Ken get arrested twice in LA on their first day and stuff like that. But there's actually a lot more to the movie, and they go back to Barbie where a lot more happens. It's really smart, and it's obvious that as well as
anti-men.
No.
You
It's
have to be a bit sensitive, would you, to feel it?
I feel like it's very pro-women, but I don't think that necessarily also means it's, it doesn't, one doesn't mean the other as far as I'm concerned. So that's controversial.
I just love nowadays where we've got to a point where there's a film about a plastic doll.
Yes.
And it turns into a conversation piece on Fox News and CNN.
Yes.
And I'm like, lads, just watch it.
Some of the reviews on Letterboxd are like, this is, it's an attack on men, and
how
the feminist agenda.
How vulnerable would you have to feel as a man to be threatened by a film?
The feminist agenda will kill us all.
Really
That's one of the reviews. The feminist agenda will kill us all is one of the reviews.
But Fanuna's very capable of coming in now and saying this film is anti-man and women need to get back into the kitchen or something.
I wouldn't say
I know you would never say that, but you just.
I would say it if I thought it, but
exactly. Me and you are being like, woke.
Yeah, absolutely, or desperately. Yeah, we'll.
But no, that is why I find it hard to get offended because I don't feel.
Yeah, I wasn't offended in the slightest.
But Fanula, sorry, your assessment. Well, start with the film itself, and then maybe the commentary.
To be honest, I was. Michael and I went to see the movie, and I was really looking forward to it, and. He absolutely loved it, and I didn't think he'd really get it, and I liked it, but I wouldn't say that I loved it.
No, you didn't at all.
Like as Michael said, he found the kind of whole fantasy idea, but to be honest, not for myself now because I'm kind of a little bit too old for when Barbie arrived to us, but a lot of I have a load of sisters, as anybody knows. So there was always Barbie stuff in our house, and there was a Barbie house and a Barbie dream car and a Barbie this and a Barbie that. So, and lots of nieces and even nephews that played with it along the way. So there's always been kind of Barbie's always been there with all the Barbie's bits and pieces.
And I benefited, Greg, from that. You know how Fanula always has to say one thing during every film? Well, the one thing during this film was when Fanula leaned over and said, "There's never any stairs in a Barbie house."
I know.
I didn't know that.
Now, her attention to detail in it is amazing. It's just like that. There's never any stairs in a Barbie house. Barbie just miraculously moves from thing to thing because the way she moves is when you're playing with her, and that's the way it is when you're playing with her. There's Barbie can't go up and downstairs. She has no knees, so it's part of the.
She also can't walk. I mean, where does this end? She's got no internal digestive system.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But the movie I thought was very fun. It was a bit more. I suppose it was a bit more serious than I thought it was going to be. It was trying to make a point.
Was it preachy?
It wasn't that it was preachy. It was just.
What was the point it was trying to make?
You see, this is what I'm not 100% sure. Like, it was, it started off and it was like the idea is that Barbie thinks that everywhere in the world, everything in the real world is fabulous because Barbie has made it fabulous. Because there's a Barbie doctor and a Barbie vet and a Barbie physicist and a Barbie space, astronaut. So therefore, that means that in the real world, women are doing all these things and women are in charge. And then obviously she goes to the real world and it's a quick awakening.
Matriarchy.
It's a quick awakening that is not quite the way the world is. But then what they've done with it then is they've kind of gone to the extremes of patriarchy then as well. That kind of way. So they've sort of gone to the extremes, to my mind anyways, in both ends. Mm. And that's what I kind of thought.
But
and then I was very fond of Ken.
Yeah, but in reality, does that not really happen an awful lot? That, it's like comedians, they will go to the very extreme of a joke or what have you.
Yes.
It's just the way it's done, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. I'm glad I thought of that. That's very good.
But you kind of go. I mean, it is not a social commentary. But if you're going to poke fun at the fact that where women's place in the world is, you might as well go all in.
Yes.
You might as well go all in and get the conversation.
If you're going to make a film about Barbie, you can't ignore the fact
we're talking about Barbie, you see. There's an irony there as
Barbie
well.
has always...
Well, no, that's the thing. Well,
it's not the first time Barbie has been the centre of a discussion about feminism and the role...
100%, yeah.
So Greta Gerwig did the right thing. I mean, by embracing the toy, she also embraced the discussion around the toy.
Yeah. You see, the thing is...
But taking the movie out of the whole even sociological discussion of it, you know, I got very fond of Ken.
You've said that again.
Yes.
I know.
That's because he looks like Ryan Reynolds in this.
No, he looks like he's Ryan Gosling. But
He's hilarious.
But the
He's
character
hilarious.
is very fun in it.
Yeah, he's a great
and
character.
And you kind of really feel for... Well, I did anyways. You end up really feeling for Ken in it.
Yeah. See,
and they didn't really kind of resolve that. No, I think it could have been resolved in a more satisfactory way.
Right.
And then it wasn't... I'm not 100% sure where this is aimed. You know, I saw a lot of people coming in and out, and I'd love to hear from any listeners.
Well, it's aimed at people who love Barbie and people who hate Barbie.
I know, but if you... Like, I have a 6-year-old niece now who's desperate to go, knows nothing about it, has seen a little, you know, clips on... the trailers and things like that, will say, comes up on on her YouTube feed, because it is only PG-13.
Of course,
and
yeah.
the trailers are even thing. So it comes up when they're watching YouTube or anything like that. Mad to go and see it. Like, I don't think she'd enjoy it.
But is it not like The Simpsons that she'll get from it what a...
I would think so. Yeah, I would think any age would get it.
In terms of the just in terms of the message of a film, I think sometimes just we need to relax. And that, you know, films have always been challenging. We spoke last week or the week before about films from the 60s or 70s.
Yeah, we did,
Whereby it was about roles of women.
Yes, we did, yes.
And then you come out of it and you have a quick chat and then you move on to the next thing. I think what happens is almost instantaneously you had people very on the right of politics and on the left of politics reviewing it and trying to talk about it, whether it was about indoctrinating people.
Oh, that's madness.
Yeah, but the point is people are over analysing stuff now,
oh yeah,
right? And that everything is about trying to convince us resistance is
and
futile.
putting it in the context of their political views.
Yeah, trust people, right, to make up their own minds. Give people the information. Watch a film, have a bit of banter or crack on the steps, but after that you're talking about where do you prefer to get your chicken from or something. Do you know what I mean? Like, rather than trying to shove this into a really boring, oppressive conversation that seems to have to be had at every turn.
I know. I mean,
there's a lot of that
like
now.
What they've done with The Little
Yeah.
Mermaid and everything that comes out of Disney and stuff like that. You're
come
just like,
on.
for God's sake, it's just a movie.
Chill out.
And it is beautifully shot.
If you worry about people,
very
relax
faithful to
and let them
Barbie.
enjoy stuff. It's pink. It's fluffy.
It's very faithful to Barbie, and it is very you know, and it is beautifully shot and that kind of thing. There's a lot of very funny moments in it. There's some, you know, some really fun scenes and that kind of thing in it. I don't know what it was. I don't know whether my expectation was too high for it. That I just, you know, the way that I was just like, oh my God, this is going to blow me away. It's going to be
you're
amazing.
a little bit like me. That depends on when you walk up the steps to the cinema, what kind of mood
you're in. Yeah,
because I really like that.
You are, I know, yeah, but possibly too much. I was looking forward.
I think maybe I was too.
I was looking forward to it as well.
Excited about it.
Yeah, but you didn't like her Little Women film. No, you see,
but I'm a purist when it comes to Little Women.
It's the Claire Danes version.
Let's get down to numbers, because I don't think it matters. Everyone's going to go and see this who wants to go and see, and we're not going to convince a sinner who doesn't want to see.
It's definitely worth going to see.
But
you'll definitely enjoy it.
Anyway.
Go with exactly.
And then enjoy it.
Go with your friends. Go and have it.
Because it accomplishes so much, and it could have gone so horrendously wrong. I'm absolutely giving it 10 out of 10.
Wowzers. Okay. It's a perfect film.
Yes.
I know.
One of the best fantasy films I've ever seen.
He kept saying that to me.
He loved it.
I don't get it.
He's all in, isn't he?
He is all in. He's gone full pink. As I said, I don't know what it was. There was just something about it that just didn't hit the right note or something.
7.5?
I'd probably just put it somewhere in along that, particularly when we're talking about the other movie that we saw at the weekend.
Which we're going to talk about after the break. And we'll go into the break with a bit of Barbie.
Hey, Barbie. Can I come to your house tonight?
Sure. I don't have anything big planned, just a giant blowout party with all the Barbies and planned choreography and a bespoke song. You should stop by.
So cool.
You can find me under the lights, diamonds under my eyes.
This is the best day.
The
The county's #1 talk show, The 9 till Noon Show on Highland Radio.
Country Sundays continue at the Clanry Hotel this weekend, featuring Patrick Finney and his band. Admission €15, doors open 8:30, dancing 9 till 11. Coming Sunday the 27th of August, it's Michael English. Overnight packages available, ticket, bed and breakfast for just €70 per person sharing. The Clanry Hotel, Letterkenny, 9124369.
Get quality cuts for quality value at Lidl. Like our Board B approved Irish strip loin steak was $3.99, now $3.49. Sweeten the deal with this honeydew melon was $2.29, now 99 cents. Get ahead with Budweiser 15 pack, now $15.27. Go on, shop without compromise. Go full Lidl today. Get the facts. Be drinkaware. Visit drinkaware.ie.
Hi, it's Claire here from Claire Clothing. Our summer sale has started. I have loads of discounts of dresses, tops, trousers, all of the summer stock. So we'll see you at our summer sale in Claire Clothing, Main Street, Letterkenny.
Time is ticking on the hottest sale of the year at Easy Living Furniture. The spectacular summer sale must end this Sunday. With absolutely everything reduced, unbeatable offers and 0% finance available, now is the perfect time to invest in comfort and style. Transform your home today. Our dedicated team are here to help. So visit Easy Living Furniture, Crescent Link Retail Park. The spectacular summer sale must end this Sunday.
Highland Radio time checks with Expressway. Travel Route 32 from Letterkenny to Dublin when you book online and travel for less. Expressway, bringing you the time at...
The time is 22 minutes past 11. So the other big release over the last week or so has been Oppenheimer. And that was also in the cinema, and that also drew the attention of Michael Leddy and Fionnuala Rabbit. So... much was said about this before you said it, about you know, people's reviews and about the story being a bit convoluted and all this kind of stuff. So I'm fascinated to hear what normal people believe of this. Unfortunately, none are available today.
I was waiting for that. I was waiting for that. I knew well.
Fionnuala, Oppenheimer.
Now, this is a movie I absolutely loved. And I went into it with a bit of trepidation because I'm not a big fan of... the director, I realised when I started to look at some of the movies that he made. I'm like, no, I still haven't fully forgiven him for the. If you remember, the first one back from COVID was his
Tenet.
Oh dear God, why?
That was. I mean, I feel like I deserve compensation.
Well, I was mentally assaulted. After that movie, it was too much for me. So that was kind of putting me off a little bit. And much as I think that Cillian Murphy is an amazing actor, I've seen him on stage so many times and loved him on stage. I was not really a big Cillian Murphy fan because he really works at a high level of intensity. Everything is really intense with him when anything I've seen him in. And he was unbelievable. I pity the fool that goes up against him in the Oscars. It'll be an unbelievable movie or performance that would take an Oscar away from Cillian Murphy based on this Oppenheimer. He was unreal.
So
he must be in 90% of it.
So a quick overview of the story then.
So the story is not really, I think, what people perceived, or at least it wasn't what I picked up from trailers. The trailers and thing kind of say to you that it's the story of, you know, the godfather of the bomb and all this kind of thing, which made you kind of think that it was more going to be a bit more Manhattan Project. That is the group of people that came and went to Los Alamos in order to create the bomb. It's really more about Oppenheimer's life and after that. There is obviously large chunks of it because that was a major part of his life, but it's really about his whole life, and very much so then after the bomb was created and a lot of things that happened to him at that point. I don't want to be spoiling it for people.
I get you, yeah.
But I really enjoyed it. I thought there was an awful lot of there's an amazing set of characters in it. People pop up for like 30 seconds in this movie and you're like, oh my God, how did they get them to do, like Rami Malek is in it at one point, and he's like he's in 3 scenes in which he doesn't even speak. And I'm like, how is Rami Malek in a movie which he's literally a character standing behind another character? And it's just, you know, there's amazing things in it. I can't think of his name now. The guy that plays the president in it. Gary Oldman, he's in it. You wouldn't even recognise him in it. Like, so there's loads of different people that pop up all the way through it, and all of the performances are just amazing.
Robert Downey Jr. is amazing.
Robert Downey Jr. is fantastic in it. He plays a senator. Actually, Strauss, a guy that wants to become a senator. And so it's basically, it's more about the political machinations and that kind of thing that went on in or around that time. I really enjoyed it. I absolutely loved it. The only thing I would say in its negative is it reminded me very much of the Baz Luhrmann Elvis that was out last year. That movie started off very Baz Luhrmann. You knew it was Baz Luhrmann's movie. He inserted himself into it to the point that you knew it was him. This movie starts off as well, and you're kind of like, oh, wow, I'm nearly sorry, even though I know Christopher Nolan is a great director before we even get excited, but why he was the one that had to do this movie, because he that makes it complicated rather than... I had read up about it, and anybody that's interested in this and doesn't feel that they should do 3 hours in the cinema, there's a great documentary on Sky, The War to End All Wars, which kind of gives you some of the history of Oppenheimer and things that went on around that time.
Some people are saying that this does not feature the story or any even people of the race of which this bomb was dropped on. We know it was. And this, and it doesn't, the people that were displaced for them to move in and develop it, that they're not represented in this film again. Is that people just trying to make some sort of political statement about a Hollywood film?
I think so, because the two things, now, they're 100% right. That's exactly, they are not. Well, the people
the story's not about them.
But exactly, and the story's not really even about the bomb. It's more about Oppenheimer and his relationships and how, again, without spoiling it, it's very difficult to kind of give you the full thing, but that's really what it's about. It's about Oppenheimer, his relationships. It's about the American political system and the kind of American thinking on the... Because really what this did was not just, obviously, the terrible tragedy for people in Japan, but it also was that it started the arms race. You know, it could be said to have started the Cold War. It's what kind of suddenly there was all this, oh, well, the Russians are this and the Russians are that. You know, there's a lot of that conversation.
Further conversations, which I find slightly more interesting, is that if things... say, for instance, we knew now that this weapon was available and it wasn't dropped, and then obviously everything, you know, what direction conflict would have taken thereafter, how would history reflect on the decision not to drop it, which I actually really feels really quite fascinating.
The thing about this is hindsight is 2020 as well. Like, at the time that this scientific discovery, the splitting of the atom happened, and they realised that there was a possibility to make some kind of a weapon with it, it was then left to one side. Then the war happened. There were people within, you know, under Hitler's control that were working on this, and what would have happened if they hadn't done it. You know, now further down the road, obviously it's a different, whether they should have actually dropped the bomb when they did, because the war was coming to an end and there was a lot of stuff in it, and all of that is kind of covered in it, and there's sort of a discussion about who taught what when and that kind of thing, but it's more really about a bigger idea of it. And I think that the only thing I would say about it is the way that Christopher Nolan has done it, you need to kind of stick with it. Because when it starts off in the beginning, you're kind of going to be, I don't understand what this is about. I don't understand what's happening here. But it kind of comes full circle in the end, unless, like me, you've watched a bit of documentary, you've done a little bit of...
a bit, you know where it's going.
That you have an idea where it's going. Otherwise, you're kind of going, I don't understand why this character is even involved in this.
Michael,
it's very Christopher Nolan, and I made a joke as we were going into the cinema that with a Christopher Nolan film, he would take the script, throw the pages in the air, and then fill in them in random order. And that's essentially what the film is, because it jumps from... There was 2 separate hearings in the 50s. We're back in the 30s. They were in the 50s. They were in the 40s on the Manhattan Project. They were
time jumping really is not my thing.
Yeah, and that... No, it works
much easier.
It works. Okay. And I have to say, I found the film to be completely clear. The narrative was clear, although there was constant time jumping. And I think a lot of that's just Cillian Murphy, who is in almost every scene. It's either Cillian Murphy or Robert Downey Jr. you're looking at. Robert Downey Jr. probably gets about a half hour on his own, and Cillian Murphy gets 2.5 hours. You're always riveted by
Cillian Murphy's eyeballs deserve Best Supporting Actor because they're out on stalks in every scene.
In everything.
It's because he has the most unbelievably blue eyes, which works for Oppenheimer, because Oppenheimer apparently had very blue eyes as well. But
he lost weight, I think, as well, and accentuates a lot of his feature. Yeah, it looks a bit gaunter.
He's very.
But I loved it. I mean, I really loved it. I did think. My only criticism is I thought sometimes the storyteller got in the way of the story, particularly when you were dealing with the hearings, because there was, but some of it's in black and white, which keeps with the clarity. But that's a very, very minimal complaint. I found the 3 hours flew. The 2 lead actors were phenomenal. I loved all the support, like Matt Damon. And I was with the story.
See, I'm waiting. I have been waiting for a big story over a big period of time. Do you know that's like a long film? Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, like a big film. You know what I mean? Like a big story, big film, big actors.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if it runs long a bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, this is
I'd have done another hour of this movie.
Yeah, I would have sat on.
Doing the documentary.
Yeah, I would have sat on.
Stuff that wasn't in it, because obviously you have to keep it.
And everybody was. It actually works as a thriller because there's time. Even though we broadly know the story, when it comes times like there's a big countdown and everything goes really quiet, and we were in an absolutely packed cinema. There wasn't a free seat, and when the movie goes quiet, it goes quiet for maybe 25, 30 seconds, and there wasn't not a crisp
as the drama.
Everybody was like just embraced it.
Yeah,
so I thought it was an amazing film.
And funny, these 2 films have been Barbies, which we talked about earlier, and Oppenheimer, and yet they're so different.
Completely,
but brilliant bit of marketing here.
It's a great bit of marketing.
So I'll start with you on the 10s then. What would you give it out of 10?
Because I said the thing about the storyteller getting in the way, I'm going to be very fussy and give it like 9.5 out of 10.
Say someone like me who doesn't really know his work. I've already forgotten his name, who directed it.
Nolan, yeah.
So who won't see it as the storyteller getting in the way of the story, because I don't really know enough about it or whatever.
Yeah.
How does that play to me?
I think you will enjoy this because I think the hook of what's happening will pull you in, Greg. I think you'll be interested in the story of the man on the bomb.
I think there's a lot of I think that's what's going to fail it, and not fail it in the way that people won't enjoy it, but you could end up sitting there that for the first hour of the movie you're like, dear God, why am I here?
Really? Okay.
But
if it pays off,
the acting
though,
and it will pay off in the end.
Okay.
And you kind of, but like if you're sitting in a movie and for the first half hour or 3/4 of an hour you're not really like, what is this going on? And you've got another 2 hours in front of you. It can kind of put you on the back foot. You know the way
of going into it. You have to stick with it then. So that's
you really have to stick with it. And to be
with
honest, like by the time I got up and walked out of it, I would have watched another hour of it.
Yes.
It just the acting, the
I would have sat on. Yeah. I would have just kept going.
And he does. Once it starts making sense, as in once the kind of topic
together.
And because what happens is that it starts at a place that is not the beginning, and that's what Christopher Nolan kind of does.
Yes,
and so then you kind of have to give it a chance to catch up to where that is.
And you referred to Elvis, and I would say what I didn't like about Elvis was the scenes were too short to get invested, and I said that at the time. But what I loved about this was the scenes were so short that you were never bored. Like
the problem I had with Elvis though was that if you want to listen to Elvis music as part of an Elvis film, and they played with it too much.
They played.
Right. Okay. So what would you give out of 10, Fionnuala?
Oh, I would definitely give it the 9.5, 10.
So
I
both
really,
9.5s.
Really
yep.
Okay, that's Oppenheimer. It is in cinemas right now, and I think it's going to continue very popular for the foreseeable as people work through getting to see it.
Yes.
On Barbie, a listener says, and this is why I love the programme, because it's just real people. I took my grandchildren to Barbie, and lucky for me I had my audio book, so I had a grand old time. One grandchild loved it and the other hated it.
Yep.
So there you go. It's as simple
that's
as
what
that.
I'd be worried, is that you'd bring kids thinking it's going to be amazing, thinking that, as you do with a lot of these movies, that kids can get something.
Does it tie into the maturity
adults.
of the child?
See, I think that's the thing, and I'd be worried. Like as I was saying to one of my sisters about my niece, I was like, I'd be worried that she wouldn't like Barbie after it. And she gets such fun and enjoyment and the whole thing. And I'm like, it could put you off it because you'd be at this movie and that they'd be bored of it. It doesn't have enough to cover the both.
Get you. All right, interesting.
Both ends.
All right, so that's Michael and Fionnuala's review of Barbie and Oppenheimer. Back with more after the break.
Watch the show live now on YouTube, Facebook, and at highlandradio.com.
Your specialty is quality tiles, bathroom suites, and wooden floors. Who is the best range of tiles in Donegal?
Crawford Tiles.
The best wood flooring?
Crawford Tiles.
The best bathroom suites?
Crawford Tiles.
5-day bathroom refits?
Crawford Tiles.
And who's been tampering with my questions?
That'll be me.
Crawford Tiles, Castlefin. That'll be them. 07491 43942.
If you'd like to make a difference in children's early learning and care, why not join the team at Wonder Years? With an attractive pay scale, you'll enjoy a 4-day working week, have access to a pension scheme and a scholarship programme to upskill to degree level. Help give young children the best opportunity to become lifelong learners with a range of skill sets by joining the team at Wonder Years in Rossbracken, Cunningham, and now also at Castle Shanahan, Letterkenny. Email your CV today to info@wonderyearselc.ie.
Attention all local businesses and advertisers. Are you ready to take your brand to new heights? Introducing Highland Radio's digital packages, your one-stop solution for maximum exposure.
Picture this. Stunning, high-quality videos showcasing your products or services, reaching thousands of potential customers on Highland Radio's popular social media channels. Not only that, your brand can shine on highlandradio.com with our web advertising. We've got the audience, reach and expertise to help your brand grow.
Dominate the digital landscape with Highland Radio's expert team by your side. Call us on 074 9125 322 or email advertising at highlandradio.com for more information.
All right, welcome back to the programme. We're joined on it now by John McLaughlin, Treasurer of Malin RNLI Fundraising Group. Good morning to you. How are you getting on, John?
Good morning, Greg. I'm good. Sunny Malin Head, or Malin Town here.
Always sunny in Malin, I'm told. Right, okay, and it'll be sunny, I'm sure, this Sunday between 2 and 5 p.m. because there's a big fundraiser, Music on the Green, or In the Green. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so this is our 30th anniversary of the Malin RNLI. It was started in 1993, and to date we have over 175,000 raised for the RNLI. So on Sunday, the 30th of July, the event will be starting at 11 a.m. with a 16-tower-to-town challenge, starting at Barmer's Crown to Malin Head and finishing in Malin Town. And we also have a 5K starting at Lag at 12 p.m. And registration will take place in Malin on Saturday from 2 to 3, and you can registration on the morning of the event as well. And there'll be a shuttle bus run from Malin Town to take them to Malin Head. Like, you wouldn't want to block up the viewers there, sightseers at Malin Head, so we're having a shuttle bus there run. That'll be done there. And this is sponsored by Annie's Pharmacies of Carndona, which is much appreciated.
Yeah, and important. There's a raft and kayak race at 5. The Rescue 118 helicopter is going to be about, all being well, from 7 p.m. So lots going on. And then music. There's music as well, is there, John?
Yeah, entertainment on the Green will start then from 2:30 to 5 with local musicians, Typhoon Generals, and we have local dancers, Irish dancers, and local musicians. It's a fun day for all the family. And then at 5 o'clock, the raft race will start. And it'll start at Malin Bridge and finish at the bridge. So the idea is we'll start them at the bridge, put them out around the buoy in the bay, and then the first raft under the eye of the bridge, usually that's the winner. And there's a lot of competition going on. There's a lot of secrecy going on around here.
They haven't unveiled their rafts yet. It's always good fun, that is. And sometimes, if they're made specifically for it, sometimes the more rickety to the raft, the better the fun to be had. And it's all to mark the 30th anniversary of the original, fundraising event, isn't it? Since the first Malin Raft Race. This is the 30th Malin Raft Race, if I'm not mistaken, the 30th year of it.
Yes.
Brilliant. Okay, John, so it's a brilliant cause. We all know the fantastic work, particularly in our county, that the RNLI do right across the coast. So we hope it's a huge day for everyone and everyone has lots of fun and loads of money raised. And thank you, John, for coming on and talking to us about it. Is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, I just want to add another wee bit. The helicopter, which is a big thing, that'll be coming at 7 p.m. and they will do a display at the bridge as well, so that's a good thing to look out for.
Yep, fantastic, especially for the younger ones.
Cleans Marquee in the afternoon then, or in the evening time then, with music. So a good night's entertainment and a good day's fun.
All right, well done for being part of the organising team. John, hope you can relax now and enjoy it now. All the hard work from an organising perspective is done. Before we end, by the way, we'll have a northwest weather forecast for you. Obviously, there's a yellow weather warning for rain tomorrow. At what time, we'll let you know, and how bad it might be, because that was issued a couple of days ago. Maybe it's not going to be quite as severe as it might be. So stay tuned for that. We'll see what the weather is then heading into next week and into August. Don't want to fall into that old trope of saying, oh my God, I can't believe it's August already. But anyway, can't believe it's nearly August already. Here we go. Right, okay, so we've done Barbie, Oppenheimer, both very highly regarded by our listeners, by our reviewers. Hi all, watch the first episodes of the new Taylor Sheridan drama Special Ops Lioness. Very good watch, nice way to move on from Jack Ryan ending. Which I haven't finished Jack Ryan, so it hasn't ended for me just yet, but thank you so much
and
for
Taylor
that.
Sheridan as the Yellowstone guy, and yeah, he everything he puts his hand to is gold.
Yeah,
it's on Paramount Plus. That's a fantastic cast. Nicole Kidman's in it, a few others. It's in the trailers for it, but I haven't managed to catch it yet.
Haven't seen it yet. All right, okay. Let me see, Michael. QAnon Anonymous, it's a podcast.
Yes.
I'm not really sure I want to open this can of worms, but I know. Go on.
Yeah, well, I know. Yeah, it is a can of worms. But anyway, I've been chatting about podcasts, and I've been getting more into podcasts recently. And I've been listening to Knowledge Fight, which is two comedians who debunk a lot of the stuff that Alec Jones has come up with. And that led me to another podcast, which has been going for the same number of years, about 6-7 years. And this is a larger team. It's not a comedic podcast. There's a lot of journalists. The guy on this, the lead guy of this team has written a lot for the Washington Post, and a lot of those people are of journalistic background. And they specifically look at the QAnon phenomenon, which is a very specific hub online for podcasts. And they have a very specific pro-Trump, pro-Russia slant. And anyone who's against Trump or Russia is a demonic worshipping, child molesting, child trafficking, blah, 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 etc. And they just fact check. And I got into this partly because of Knowledge Fight and partly because of Sword of Freedom, because I want to see that movie and it isn't available yet to be seen on this side of the world. So I listened to 3 episodes of this podcast this week. The first one was specifically the one that looked at that movie and looked not so much at the movie, but looked at the man the movie is based on. And
have you not really, though, found your echo chamber?
I don't know, because I feel like...
Well, how many of the facts do they go, actually, they were right about that, you know? Has that come up yet?
Very much what he says, this Tim Ballard guy, it's very difficult to say anything he says is true.
Yes.
Because a lot of what he says can be proven to be untrue. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know, I suppose his name is Tim Ballard and that's verifiably true. So yes, that part's true. I think it's important to know this stuff because you have people like, particularly in American politics, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's, you know, an elected official who's believing a lot of these things. And when you have a country whose elected officials believe stuff that journalists can totally debunk, but are still making decisions based on these things, I think that's something to be aware of in the political climate.
It is, of course, but
and
then listen, I'm not going to... This is why I kind of... But then you could sort of get into the historic relationship between journalism and certain, you know, politics, and that maybe some might feel that journalism or journalists have been
in bed with politicians in the past.
And have been complicit maybe in pushing a certain message.
But I also think that for the first time in the history of the world, a lot of misinformation exists online that I think is, while what you say is true and there is definite proof that that has happened in the past, what's happening now is worse. Like, it has shaped, like putting Trump in the White House, putting Brexit through. A lot of those things can be seen to have happened because of misinformation. Some might say,
do they talk about the perhaps that maybe Zelensky was put into power in Ukraine?
They say that,
and that was very...
It's my pet argument.
That was very useful to the American government, and the media never really called that out. They just went along with it.
But the Americans have been doing that for a long time. The Americans have... It's not the first...
You're kind of going, well, that's all right, but I wouldn't listen to a podcast where what they say is wrong.
Well, it's a bit like...
You know what I mean?
But it's a bit like the Japan Oppenheimer situation. if the movie Oppenheimer is focused on Oppenheimer and your argument is, well, what about Japan? Then I'm going to say, yes, that's valid, but irrelevant to what this is about.
I get where you're coming from. My preferred method of finding out information is to listen to some of that information, listen to some of that information, and somewhere in between
find out.
Form my own.
My response to what you said about Zelensky is, if I listen to a podcast about Tim Ballard, and it specifically deals with this, say he makes 10 claims, and they debunk his 10 claims, and you say, what about Zelensky?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, what has that got to do with what you're talking about?
Because what I'm talking about is, this is what I meant by the echo chamber, because they're not going to ask that question.
Yeah.
Because you've found a space whereby, okay, they are probably sort of not only disproving what someone else thinks, but helping you to think what you think and agreeing with you. So, like, I'm not saying that as a counter argument. I just know issues like that will do that. We could start talking about Americans and the fact they're okay with what's happening in Israel, but they're not.
Oh yeah, well, they have vested interest in.
Do you get where I'm coming from?
I get where you're coming from.
I get you, and I fully support you.
Yeah.
Not that you need my endorsement, podcasts, but I just like to stay out of those spaces.
I get it. I can understand why. Yeah, I just think it's important sometimes to know some of the stuff.
No, I get you. I do, and I 100% get you and respect it, Fionnuala.
No, I'm kind of saying about it, because I agree both your sides. But I hate that whataboutism. It's like what about it? Yeah. It's like a new thing that we suddenly say just because one thing doesn't mean you have to bring in the whole world. Yeah. So I understand that side of it. But I think I agree. I think
I'm on about more. Yes, I get you. But what I'm on about really is that you see, if you've established a platform to debunk things that you disagree with. Then what happens is you can't be selective in that. You have to bring it all in and say, by what they said about this was correct.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And then that gets the authenticity.
You're automatically coming from a side.
Sort of freedom. They talk a lot about what other groups are doing and how serious the child trafficking thing is globally, and it's not just in terms of sexual things, but also labour.
Yeah,
for labour is a huge
primarily
thing.
Probably.
Yeah, actually it's much bigger. It is much bigger. You're right. So they do talk about that. But if somebody, it's hard to. If somebody is just lying, it's hard to say he was right about X, Y, and Z.
Well, and then my ultimate thing is, adults, stop arguing with each other and actually work together to make sure that we can protect children as best as possible.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
I would love that.
That would be great.
Because talking about it while it's still happening and what might happen, adults. To work together and make sure this doesn't happen, and depoliticize the protection of children. I would love to see that.
Yeah.
But there is a thing of focusing on what's not. Like I, at the moment, I'm doing a thing with Star Trek, and I'm watching 6 episodes.
Quite the
segue.
Fairness.
And I'm doing.
Trying to see where this lands. Go.
Yeah. So the point is, I'm doing a thing every week. I'm watching 6 episodes from 6 Star Trek shows every weekend. Star Trek Next Gen, Star Trek DS9, Star Trek Enterprise, Star Trek Strange New Worlds, and Star Trek Lower Decks. And I'm doing reviews and I'm posting them online. And I'm getting a fair bit of traction. I probably get about 100 responses.
Brilliant.
It's great. It's great fun. I'm doing that every weekend. About 50 of the responses I'm getting every weekend without fail are, where is Star Trek Voyager? What's wrong with Star Trek Voyager? Why do you hate Star Trek Voyager? Which I'm just not picking and not including. The point I'm making is the argument that I have put up.
Captain.
Well, I don't know what it is. Yeah, of course, yeah. So the point I'm making is you put something out there and there is an element of the audience that'll be like, well, whatever is there, what about this other thing that you're not talking about? That's what I'm invested in. And Ricky Gervais makes a very good point.
Yeah, but if I wanted to go to a blog where I thought that all of Star Trek was being blogged about, I wouldn't go to yours.
Yeah, okay, I suppose, yeah. Well, although
and
Voyager,
also, if I hated Voyager, well, your blog would be really
right up there,
because I wouldn't have to read through the crap I don't want to hear. Do you get where I'm coming from?
Oh, yeah. Ricky Gervais makes a good point about that too when he does this joke about, it's the social media and the way people's minds, it's like, and I probably quoted this before because I really love it, it's where somebody puts up, he says, like having a thing in a notice board in the community hall, which is like guitar lessons available. And he said there's be so many people ringing up and saying, what? I don't want guitar lessons. How dare you?
Yeah.
And people come from their own thing. It's like, well, Oppenheimer doesn't mention Japan, therefore it's bad. Or in your case, as you said, and being the devil's advocate, I know what you're doing. It's like, we're like, well, they're not verifying some of the things that somebody says that's true, therefore it's wrong.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Get
You know what I mean?
get you.
But it's interesting. It's a great discussion point. Like, I mean, it is a great discussion point.
More interesting is how do I get set up a fake IP address and then troll him about his hatred of Catherine Janeway?
Well, we'll be covering that topic after this quick
Ironically,
break.
I can show you how to do that.
Charlie McClafferty Funeral Directors, serving Letterkenny and the surrounding areas for over 100 years. Charlie McClafferty Funeral Directors. Let our family take care of your family and guide you through a difficult time.
On this week's Business Matters, I'm joined by Carrygart-based estate agent Louis Boyce and quality manager with Donegal ETB's Further Education and Training Services, Deirdre McColgan. So join me, Ciara O'Donnell, for Business Matters on Sunday evening after the 6 o'clock news. The Business Matters podcast is also available to download at highlandradio.com.
Business Matters in association with the ATU Donegal Faculty of Business. If you have an undergrad in any discipline and would like to reinforce it with a Masters in Business, ATU are offering their Masters in Business Management Conversion Programme. Call 9186 206 or email donald.hannigan@atu.ie.
Time is ticking on the hottest sale of the year at Easy Living Furniture. The spectacular summer sale must end this Sunday. With absolutely everything reduced, unbeatable offers and 0% finance available, now is the perfect time to invest in comfort and style. Transform your home today. Our dedicated team are here to help. So visit Easy Living Furniture, Crescent Link Retail Park. The spectacular summer sale must end this Sunday.
Backed by popular demand, the Murder Express arrives at Oakfield Park this August. The year is 1891 and the Borlotti Brothers Carnival is on tour across Europe. The next stop is Oakfield, 20 years on from the last visit. But there's missing jewels, mistaken identity, and of course, a brutal killing. Enjoy a theatrical dining experience, a train ride and immersive theatre where you get to interrogate key suspects in a bid to uncover the truth. Followed by a delicious banquet with wine, a full bar and music. Book a place now on the 11th or 12th of August for the Murder Express at oakfieldpark.com.
Yeah, so if you get an IP scrambler and a VPN and set it... Anyway,
Okay.
Sorry, we're back.
Will be the tagline.
Right, okay. So what do you want to talk about from your list here? The Amazon, Netflix, Disney, Channel 4, whichever you prefer.
No, well, I will mention this Deadlock because it took me a little while.
This is on Amazon.
This is on Amazon. So I was kind of looking for something to watch over the weekend, and this thing came up, and it was a detective thing. And I'm looking for a new detective series to be following because all of my detective series are slowly being weaned out.
What's your best one?
They're really good. Oh, well, I used to love, like, sorry, I loved Vera. I also loved I can't even think of the name of it now.
It's fine.
The one
I
after
get
Morse.
the ones you're on about.
The one that came after Morse, the guy.
It'll come.
Anyways, Lewis. Thank you. Would not come into my head. So I love
And
those.
Hudson and Rex.
I love those.
What about Hudson and Rex?
I missed Hudson and Rex. The 5th series started, and I missed the beginning of it. I have to go back and watch it all. But I do love a good detective thing. I love something that's strong detective. So this thing came up, and I said, "Oh, I haven't seen this." And basically, it was about 2 female detectives in Australia. Now, I don't know what goes on in Australia, and I have never been. So I do not want to insult anybody that comes from Australia. But is everybody daft down there? Because based on their TV
How could that be seen as an insult?
But based on their TV programs that come over here, at least the ones I've seen, everybody seems a bit daft. You know, like they always seem to have like these little villages, and half the people are what most people would call a little bit off. So this is set in like Transylvania or somewhere like that. Just happens to be on the island. And they're in this small little village. A large group of ladies have moved there. And suddenly kind of the local people are being displaced, and they've all these people living there who are all, as we would call them, blow-ins and all this kind of thing. And they're changing the town, and they're changing the way everything is. The majority of these ladies are lesbians, and they're in couples. So this has kind of become like the place for people to move to have a country lifestyle and live I said open and free and that kind of thing. And all of a sudden then this body shows up, and the detective, the police sergeant that's there is because considered to be overwhelmed by her superiors. So then an outside detective is brought in, which is another woman. So I started watching this. In the beginning, I was like, I don't know why I'm watching this, because I kind of just picked it up. And now it's kind of a bit crude, and it's a lot of language in it, and that, again, sometimes you find that with some of the Australian stuff that comes here. I will say that, because I mean, the Sullivans, everybody was very.
Yeah, so you've been what we're seemingly routinely exposed to. Yeah,
this is what seems to be coming over that way. So but I have to say, it is. There's about 8 episodes in it. And by the end of it, I absolutely adored it.
Wow.
And I stuck with it. I did find it very crude, and the language was a bit harsh for me in the beginning. But the mystery was interesting. So that was kind of what was bringing me back. But by the end of it, then I really kind of got into the characters, because you actually started learning a little bit more about them, a little bit more about their lives. You know, the daftness of it kind of becomes a bit more normal as you're going on, and that kind of thing. You know, like, these are the kind of thing now where there's a guy walking down the road walking his donkey of an evening. You know, that kind of like not any. And
is it Colin Farrell?
No, it's not Colin Farrell. And it's just very kind of it's very kind of whimsical, but yet but
it's funny, but there is a proper mystery.
There is, yeah. It's advertised as a comedy detective, kind of comedy drama thing. And I actually have to say, by the end of it, I really got into it, and I really enjoyed it. I don't know anybody that was in it, because they're all Australian, I'm assuming, actors and actresses. There was some discussion and things come up about, you know, native Australians and all, and the issues that are there, which is good that they kind of at least tip their cap to it. But overall, it really was just the kind of mystery, as all of a sudden then it was like one body's found, then another body's found, and, you know, slowly and surely through it, there's half a dozen lads dead. And it just was kind of like, was fun, but yet you were kind of constantly going, oh, I wonder who did do it, which sort of kept me going with it. So I did, yeah. And I just thought, it's not easy to find. It's called Deadlock, Deadloch, all one word. It popped up at one point, just, you know, sometimes it pops up on the scrolling thing that you have. I then couldn't find it, because it didn't even come up in my recommendations, and I had to start searching in Amazon to find it. And but I would definitely, if somebody likes that kind of thing. Now, as I said, it is a little bit kind of.
Your granny hasn't. We haven't heard about your granny.
Granny would not be impressed.
I'm not sure whether I would watch this. I recommended it to one of my sisters, and I was like, "Don't watch it with Mom." But it is. It actually is. The crudeness kind of fades a bit.
Kind of washes over
these things, it's like as if they feel.
You just become climatized to it.
And sometimes you see a lot of nudity early on in a show, and then you know, like Power was like that, or a few other shows. There was a lot, and then it stops. And you wonder, well, why did you do it at the beginning?
Game of Thrones was like that. It was more excessive. Game of Thrones was more like that at the start.
Okay, well, listen. It's a hidden nugget on Amazon.
Yeah, I have to say, I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
So we've had quite an interesting Barbie, both highly rated.
Yes.
Oppenheimer, both highly rated. Yep. Definitely recommend you go and watch it. You can check out that QAnon Anonymous podcast if you want to, and also a wee nugget for you potentially on Amazon. Deadlock. It's an Australian set comedy detective show.
Yes.
Michael Leddy, thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Really
Great
enjoy
fun.
you coming on and having a chat and
Great
what
fun.
have you, and listening to what you have to say. And Fionnuala, as always, you as well. Thank you very much indeed.
No bother at all.
Enjoy your weekend. We'll be back with you bright and early. Well, it's not really early, bright anyway, hopefully on Monday morning from 9 o'clock. Stay tuned. John Breslин's up around the northwest. But for me and the team, as I say,